show, I have 5 guests. So, oh, and McChee. So, on this show, we're going to be doing a review of a few different political quizzes, 8 values, I Side With, The Political Compass, and Spekr. And doing that, I've drafted several different legends of Seatown. First up, I got Nick.
Hey, how you doing?
Then I have the co-hosts of another Seatown podcast called Cup O' Thought, Ethan and John.
Hey.
Hello.
And making an unexpected appearance is Rob. Hey, Rob.
Hi.
And making his record-setting 18th appearance on Primo NUTMEG is Jack.
Hello.
So, Rob.
I can smoke podcast cigarettes now.
Rob,
Yep.
you're kind of crashing this one, but I'm happy that you are, because yesterday, right, was
Yes.
your 31st birthday.
Wow.
So
Yep.
let's hear it for Rob, birthday boy.
Thank you.
That was probably so loud.
And even though you didn't take any of these quizzes, Rob, please do consider this your birthday episode.
You know what? I'm going to learn a lot.
That was your birthday present.
I'm going to learn a lot tonight, so that is a great gift. I appreciate it.
Wait a minute, he didn't have to take the quizzes?
No.
Did not
have
take
to
the
endure that.
quizzes.
If I just lied and said it was my birthday, would that mean I didn't have to take the quizzes?
No.
So, before we get into this, I don't know, maybe did anybody have anything on their minds? We got a lot of news going on with Trump and Comey and I don't know what the hell else. Anybody have anything on their minds that they'd like to talk about? Maybe that kid who had his Trump shirt censored we were just talking about a minute ago.
You know, there's so much of that going on around. You know, the really thing that stuck with me is that some woman in Waterbury ran over 20 Canada geese.
Really?
And murdered them. Just
On
ran them
purpose?
over. She lost the bumper of her car. She hit that many geese. That thick of a flock of Canada geese.
Take that, Jacques.
And she drove away. And they
What's
caught
the-
her because her bumper and her license plate was there.
covered
But
with
you know,
wings
she
and
doesn't
blood.
remember anything. She doesn't remember. She thinks the car might have been.
Did she like
stolen.
drive through a park or what happened?
I guess it's like a
tied
causeway. It's a causeway in Waterbury in a park near some wooded areas where unsavory activities occur. So she may or may not have been, you know,
Strung out.
on the job, so to speak,
Oh.
or something else. But yeah, she, either her or somebody in the car totally ran over 20 Canada geese and just
That's the
slaughtered
most
them.
insane thing I've ever heard
But
in my
yeah,
entire life.
but they had to, like, they went and they talked to, like, the police chief of Waterbury for comment, and he's just like, you know, it's a real shame that this senseless carnage against the wildlife.
I shoot him when I'm about town.
You know? I mean, he has better things to do.
Exactly,
He has better
that-
things to do than talking. There's real bodies in Waterbury, you know, not geese.
It's true.
So, I don't know. All that other stuff, you know, it's just more left, right, rigmarole.
That is true. And that is pretty much what we're doing today on the show because I'm sure, Rob, you've seen these political quizzes, right? People take these quizzes and they post their results on Facebook. Some of them are more popular than others, but essentially people take these quizzes, they answer a bunch of different questions about, you know, either in the affirmative, I strongly agree, I disagree, I strongly disagree. Sometimes there's a neutral option. You take, you know, you do all these questions, and at the end of it, it tells you what your, like, political label is, you
Yeah.
know? Like, you are a democratic socialist
Right.
based on your answers. So on today's show, we decided to review these 4 different really popular political quizzes, 8 values, I Side With, The Political Compass, and Spekr. I believe I'm pronouncing that right. Seems like it would be Spekr, right?
Yeah, because I think it specifies your political leanings.
Right. It's actually, that one's designed by an ANCAP, but I think he's like Scandinavian or something. Like
Well,
his,
the questions gave it away.
yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
do you believe coercion is wrong in all instances? Like, oh,
Right.
libertarian wrote this.
So essentially what we're going to do today is we're going to do 2 things. We're going to run through each of these and review them, but we're also going to talk about our results. Let's start with 8
else is
values.
there?
Does that sound good?
Sure.
All right. So 8 values. Let's run through some of the questions first because there was one that, the first one that I really noticed that kind of bugged me was oppression by corporations is more of a concern than oppression by governments. So that's kind of, it seems like it could be viewed as like a false dichotomy. Like, well, what if I don't like oppression by corporations or by governments?
What if oppression by the government causes oppression by corporations?
True. I mean, do you guys think that they are different? Are corporations less oppressive, or the way that they might oppress you, is that different than the way that a government can oppress you?
No, but I don't really think there's much of a difference. You know, you look at a company like Lockheed Martin or Electric Boat or something, like there's no way they would exist without the state and the military industrial complex. You know,
They oppress you through the government.
that's why it's a complex. You know, it's this intertwined network of
lobbying and
and it's the same people. You know, whether they're the COO of some Fortune 500 company or they're a lobbyist or they end up their son becomes a congressman or whatever. It's the same stuff, you know.
Well, even like the regulatory agencies are run by the people, you know, like
Right.
Goldman Sachs runs the SEC or whatever.
Yeah.
And, like Monsanto runs the FDA.
So which is more oppressive, you know, the FDA or Monsanto?
Right.
They're the same thing. It's monolithic power structure.
I mean, it might just be semantics. I think what they're really, the heart of this question is about market versus state.
Sure.
But, I mean, this really gets to like a fundamental issue about corporations. Could corporations exist in a really free market? Or I mean, corporations are, to be incorporated, that means that government is giving you some kind of special privilege, right? So would
Legal personhood.
So would that exist in a free market?
I would say no.
I think you need to do a lot more definition of what you mean by free market. Like if you mean a market completely unregulated by government because there is no government to regulate it, or a government not regulated by government because the government just chooses not to regulate it. That's a big difference. So like you go back to like so again, and our time is going to change everything anyway. So being in the time period we are in is going to change things. But if you go back to revolutionary, I mean, our country was founded by wealthy men who owned corporations. You know, obviously that incorporation didn't exist at the time period because the government setups to classify that didn't exist. But that was before our nation existed. Now you could say again, like East India Company, all that is because of the state of England financed that. But I think you have to define what you mean by a free market before you can even answer the question, because it's kind of like it's a hard thing. So like if you're asking if it would exist at all without any government, probably not. But I don't think that that's like even like a realistic like phenomena for our time period. When you have 300 million people in the United States, I don't think you can go back to that kind of localized world anymore.
So, Nick and Ethan, do you guys, based on your reading of like voluntarism, do you think like in like an ANCAP society, would limited liability businesses exist, or no?
I don't think that it would be. It wouldn't be government. The government wouldn't define it, but I do think that there would be business entities that would buy insurance so that if the corporation is attacked, the insurance company would cover damages in that, so that they couldn't be ruined as a person. I think that still would, that portion of what a corporation gets by becoming a corporation would still exist. So I do think that while they wouldn't be called corporations, there would be large business entities, I would think, that act as a business, not as individuals.
So the next question that I noted on here that kind of interests me was international trade is beneficial. That's something that you have to either agree with or disagree with. Who's calling? Nice fanny pack, by the way.
Thanks. That way I can go swimming, Megan.
So international trade is beneficial. That seems like
It's kind of an ambiguous question.
Jesus Christ. Yeah, I mean, I agree that people should be able to trade freely.
Yeah.
But do I agree that there should be like things like NAFTA? I wouldn't. So I don't know how to answer that question.
Right. It's kind of one of those questions where you don't really know what the intention of the author is, depending on what your answer is. So it's kind of tough. There's a lot of questions like that for 8 values.
Well, I see. That's the thing is, I think like capitalism gets portrayed popularly as corporatism. So like if you think oppression by corporations isn't a bad thing, and if you're for international trade, then you're like a right winger, you know.
Right.
So I don't know, Jack. International trade is beneficial. What do you think about that question?
Again, it's sort of, there's sort of these cart tracks that these quizzes assume that you're going to take, like you're going to be sort of a dyed-in-the-wool, toe-the-line right-wing conservative, or you're going to be kind of a dyed-in-the-wool, toe-the-line sort of liberal, leftist, Democrat, whatever you want to call it.
Right.
So, yeah, international trade's overall beneficial, but like an organized network of cartels is not,
Guilds.
So, but again, who facilitates that? Who causes it to happen? Like the Dutch East India Company or the English East India Company was mentioned. Like, those sort of ventures to the other side of the earth, like they sort of need a concerted organization behind them, like a state, in order to even make it happen. I mean,
Ship insurance and.
Yeah, you get your loads insured, or you sign off. We're carrying this load here and there, and it has to be all standardized and whatnot. So
trade is a technology. You know what I mean? And just like any other, a lot of the technology that we have as a species, it's kind of outpaced us. Where you guys were talking about sort of the roots of a corporation. That started right here in America. With incorporating businessmen incorporating their holdings, for mutual protection and benefit. I think that if corporate personhood is just a way, it's for people who out there who may not understand. I'm sure most of your listeners understand it, but it affords the constitutional protections of an individual to a corporation. That's like that's terrible.
I mean, it does a little bit.
without any of their liability too.
Yeah.
You still have criminal liability. You just don't have like.
Well, you can't
civic
arrest a
liability.
corporation.
It's harder
Hey,
to get.
just fine 'em.
It makes it harder
Well,
just to get there.
it all depends. Like, see, that's the problem with it is it's so like it gets oversimplified. An LLC is a corporation.
Yeah.
So like a limited liability company is a corporation, and that's owned usually by an individual, and that individual is not liable for, like, you can't sue him for doing a bad job at his work. But if because of him your kid dies and it's criminal, you can sue for criminal. So you're still criminally liable. You're just not. You're not liable for like civic penalties, I guess you just call it. Now obviously that changes a whole lot when you get into like.
Yeah, it depends on how good
Giant
your lawyers are.
corporations. But the term corporation is like.
Union Carbide can kill 20,000 people, and
Right.
they're fine.
Right.
And like, actually, I did want to say too, back to like, the founders of this country or whatever. Like, yeah, they're big landholders. They had plantations and stuff. But if they really messed around too much, people were gonna come and get them and string them up or tar and feather them or whatever. Like,
Sure.
you still
stocks.
Yeah, and they were, they were people. They were actually people, so they had a set of values. They had a set of morals. They had social pressures that were keeping them in line. It's if you see someone every day on Sunday at church, it's really hard to like really just like screw them over. You can't just like alienate everyone in the town because the town needs you as much as you need the town. Is sort of like the gentry of the area, let's say, because they were
Right.
in the American sense. So, but with a corporation, there really that doesn't exist. Who's GE's neighbor?
Everyone.
Yeah.
So the next question that I noted that I had a little trouble with, I guess, was inheritance is a legitimate form of wealth. I don't know why. I just I'm not really sure. It seems kind of rough to say you can bequeath massive amounts of wealth over generations. That seems like not competitive. But also, I mean, what are you going to do to restrict that? You'd have to have, I guess, government come in and stop people forcibly from handing down their wealth. So I don't know.
I mean, they kind of do with inheritance tax.
Yeah,
they stop
they do.
some of
Yeah, they're trying.
Yeah.
It's hard to peel back the layers of the onion on that one, right? Because you think about these establishment families in America. So how did they get there? You know, like
Right.
there are certain, you know, Andrew Carnegie was selling raincoats before he became a steel magnate, and Rockefeller was picking potatoes and yada yada. They all, you know, some of them are these sort of like hometown, come from just nothing or lower middle class to become like titans of industry. But who's financing them? You know,
Right.
like who's writing these checks? Who's making these loans where they can even build their first steel foundry or whatever? It's old money, and this old money has been old money in Europe, and it was old money before that even too. You know, especially once you get into like the aristocracy and royalty, like their inheritance was basically because, you know, how about the royalty in England? Like where did they come from? The Battle of Hastings. Okay,
Right.
so you know you were a valiant knight in 1066. That means for 30 generations out, your family can run the show. I don't know. Doesn't seem right to me.
That is kind of a critique that comes from, I know specifically Georgists and mutualists, they critique bequeathing land down over generation after generation because that land was won in some kind of conquest, some kind of violent act at some point in time.
Yeah.
So how would you guys respond to that? Do you think that, I mean, that seems like the non-aggression principle is being violated to begin with, like the
For posterity.
yeah. So like, you know, you'd say government can't come and bother me on this land because I own it, and they're violating a non-aggression principle in doing that. But that land was earned, you know, conceivably, especially like if you're some kind of aristocracy in England, I guess, you know, in some kind of battle.
But wasn't all land at some point earned that way?
Well, that's the point.
Like, you'd be hard to find an exception for that.
Yeah. So
Well, that punches a hole kind of in the whole homesteading thing, you know, if that's like a fundamental tenet of your ethics system.
I guess unless, I mean, obviously there's some land that wasn't won in conquest, right?
I mean, yes.
Really, because it was always
You're
Aborigines.
standing on
taken
you're
from
standing
someone.
on land that was fought over, you know.
But I mean, how far do you go back where you have to?
Well, that's the thing.
know,
It's
I
like
mean,
Exactly.
it gets too confusing.
So way back then it was illegitimate, but would it really be more legitimate to now take it from force from those other people? You know,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Therein lies the crux of the whole thing, you know?
you know.
I guess it goes down to whoever, like, that community is that decides it. I mean, if there's a community that decides, like, some aristocrat's descendants, and let's say he owns, like, 500 acres, and they say, no, we're only going to accept, like, 100 of that, then, I mean, forcibly they're telling him no, but that's, like, the most basic determinant of who owns what land is just force.
But
So-
it kind of goes back to that corporate question. You know, I don't know if aggregations of control or power would be so stable in a world where there wasn't some legitimized violence to enforce it for generation after generation after generation. You know, I think the anarchic nature of having no state would just make it much more tumultuous and hard to pin down. If you know, the origin of the word aristocracy is the rule of by the best. So if you truly were the best, then you'd rise to the top anyways. You know, there are a lot of stories of that happening in royalty. You know, once you make it up into that power structure, like the Rockefellers and the Carnegies, you become integrated. But there's no power structure to become integrated in, and you're still kind of like sink or swim. You know, you have to survive based on your merit rather than just the
floating along.
the social mores of your time or whatever.
So would you guys say that inheritance is legitimate?
I said it was.
Okay. How about you
Yeah.
guys?
I mean, I wouldn't seek to impose any restriction on someone for that.
Yeah.
But what if like you were Al Capone's grandson or something, you know? Like he stole all this wealth and
Yeah,
it's
but in a
illegitimate.
world with no prohibition, Al Capone's grandson would have to be working honest living, you know? So if he could make it and work an honest living or do something with his money that actually earned him something rather than driving him into bankruptcy, then hey, more power to him. But good luck, you know, because it's a tough world out there without Big Daddy government to help you out.
I mean, plus Al Capone kind of implemented the whole agorist kind of methodology, just ignoring what the government says is law, and
Yep. I suppose
gained his
it's
own
true.
through that. So I wouldn't fault his grandson for it. I wouldn't take from him.
He's an entrepreneur in the purest sense.
Is this really a person? Al Capone's grandson?
No, I just was
Louis Capone.
first thing that came to mind.
You know,
Janitor.
man, all I gotta say is our
Louis.
ancestors have been leaving treasure hoards for their,
I think you got to look at it.
descendants.
Sorry. You got to look at it from the other side too. Like, I mean, somebody like who's worked hard so that their kids can have it better. You know, there's a lot more of those people than there are Al Capone. You know, his grandson. You know,
Isn't it like 80 or like 85% of millionaires? I think it was 2015 or 2016 were like first generation millionaires.
Yeah.
It's like, I mean, it all depends on what you're talking about when you mean wealthy. Like if you mean like we're in Colchester, Connecticut. There's a pretty good amount of millionaires who we know,
Right.
whether you know it or not. And it's like that's a different class than like Rockefellers and Koch brothers and those kind of people.
Well, if you make over 35 grand a year, you're in the global 1%. Right?
Yeah.
So
Right. Not to mention the percentage you are when you look at like historically. Like it gets insane if you look historically.
that's true too.
Like if you like, I looked at it the other day. Like in 1890, if you take their money and you inflate it to ours, like an average tradesman would make like $50 a day. So it's like, okay, like I mean, it's not great. It could be better, but it's like also, I have a nice phone, a car. So I mean, I know.
Yeah, and as soon as you start implementing policy like that, where you're taken from someone because you're saying their, forebears inherited it through some kind of illegitimate means, you're just gonna see that expand gradually, where more and more people with their kind of say, whatever the trend of that generation is, they're gonna say like, well, that's messed up how they inherited this because their father did it through, I don't know, whatever, like, well, they didn't follow this kind of law, or they were advocating against our interests. And
When you
Well,
were,
Tocqueville said that the American Republic would collapse when the public found out they could the politicians found out the public can be bribed with the public's money. So as soon as you come down that slippery slope of like, well, it's not right you have that, I'm taking it.
All right. So the next question I noted was public utilities like roads and electricity should be publicly owned. How do you guys feel about that?
Well, it's circular to begin with.
Public
Public utilities should be public.
it's just a grammar question. The answer is always yes.
There were some of those on the
It's a
political
riddle.
compass, actually.
my roads. I don't think they should be public.
Okay.
I think there can be problems though, and I've seen people
Here we go.
make the kind of like extreme hypotheticals where like, well, what happens if two private companies just box you out with roads and then they don't let you on? But that same thing could be done for anybody though. What happens if the government doesn't like you and they do it? You have no recourse
Well, they do.
either way. Yeah.
They take
so,
those licenses. Or during a snowstorm, they say nobody can drive on the roads.
Yeah, it's a parking ban.
yeah.
So
So
they did it on
closed.
the highway. They said
Yeah.
there was one day where they didn't let you on the highway.
Oh, I've
Yeah,
done
you will
it.
be
Nothing
pulled over and
happens.
fined. Just to find you.
just do it.
Nothing happens.
if
Just
they're
do
not
it.
going to let you cross, if they're not going to let you pass, aren't they essentially imprisoning you?
Yeah.
And isn't that essentially they're now in the wrong?
Yeah, well, that's why I think they should be private. I think that would work out more efficiently.
I think it'd be hard for them to convince an arbitration company if there were people arbitrating whether that's fair or not,
And
that they
convincing-
box someone in and they're not letting them out.
And
That's-
you'd have to convince like whoever else, unless it's one company surrounding this guy's land, then you'd have to convince the other guy like, hey, their money's not going to be good enough. Let's just box them out.
Yeah.
You're not going to find that. But
Or maybe it'll kick you in the ass to abandon consumer culture and massive 1,000-mile and upon 1,000-mile strings of logistic support necessary to support your lifestyle, and you can fucking not worry about it.
Right.
yeah, is it just consumerism though?
Yeah, or like commuter culture, like, oh, my work's 30 minutes away. I mean, that is such a historical aberration. It's not even funny.
Yeah, no, it's insane.
If it's not within walking distance, it's too far.
I thought about that the other day. I drove an hour and a half. My wife had a baby. We drove an hour and a half there and an hour and a half back. And I was like,
Why?
because she wanted to go to a birthing center, not a hospital. So we had to go all the way to Danbury. And I was like, I had driven it twice in like 2 days. And I was driving home and I was like, this is insane. I was like, what am I doing? I'm going 70 miles an hour. with an infant in the back of my car.
Yep.
Like I was going 65. And it's like, and I thought like, this is crazy. Like, this is nuts. And I think, and you kind of.
It is.
Yeah, and it's one of the reasons that I don't call myself a libertarian is because things like interstate highways, that's a huge risk to be like, it'll probably work. No one has ever done it ever, but let's try it. Like, it's like, I don't know. And when you look historically, like the Intercontinental Railroad, you're like, oh, that doesn't exist without the United States pushing that. That would have never happened. And it's like,
I think it would have.
I don't know
but
if that's true.
Well, it didn't happen.
Yeah,
Like,
well, it was
that's what-
though. It was though. There
Weren't
was
they private companies?
Yeah,
there
but they
were-
are private companies.
The
Now-
railroad companies are about as private as
Right.
GE and Lockheed Martin.
Right,
and
exactly.
They were the original fucking trust, you know?
Oh, it was at least as bad, if not worse.
Yeah.
But there is an instance of it happening in the free market at the same time as the government one. It's like, I want to say it was like the northern. It's the Northern Railroad or something like that. It was
Northern
going on at the
Pacific?
same
I
time.
read about
And
it.
it
The
might
North
be.
Pacific was
Then weren't they racing?
Yeah, the Northern Pacific was racing.
I
But
can't.
the government
I
wanted
can't
all
remember
the
guy's
Chinese
name, but-
slaves, so they got it done way quicker.
But I think
Great Wall shit.
I don't think communal culture is naturally bad. I think
Very
that's what
annoying
happens
trends.
when you have capitalism and you have the innovation that comes with it. You naturally get the pockets where you find where those resources are, or where you find the people that have just settled there, and then you decide like, all right, well, we're gonna ship these goods or this service out to X, Y, and Z. It's less efficient and less economically, I guess, logical to kind of like force yourself within constraints. You're not gonna have as much of a reach, and you're not gonna have as much of an effect and much growth.
So another 8 values question that I noted was those with greater ability to pay should receive better health care.
I agree.
Yeah.
Why do you agree?
Because if you have the money, what's the problem? What's someone have a moral hang up in me getting better care than them?
Get that sweet, sweet fetus blood.
If I work for my money and I put it in, why not?
I guess the backlash would be that, there should be some kind of general altruism or camaraderie among people that everybody, if they're sick or hurt or dying especially, they should be
We should
helped
have
out.
cancer together. I can't get treatment for it. I should.
Hey, you're the one who wants
suffer all the
interstates.
same. I mean,
It's the Cancer Express.
that's essentially what, like, every argument they have has like that kind of flip side where it's like, well, you should be altruistic. Well, I can't be altruistic if you're forcing me. That just defies the whole
It defies the whole
definition. Yeah.
definition.
And that's like the
just-
whole charity thing is like you
being
can't
a
force
hostage.
charity. That's an oxymoron.
Right.
Fill
Exactly.
the boot.
So-
Exactly.
Yeah, fill the boot. We're pulling your ass over.
Have you guys ever had to go through fill the boot?
Yes.
Everybody
Yeah.
knows about fill the
Yeah,
boot.
for sure.
Yep.
That is
That is bullshit.
Yeah.
When I saw that, we were on our way. We were actually on our way. Was going to a LARP the next day, and I said, "This is an excellent idea for being bandits in the woods. Just like stop people and
Yeah,
make
because
them
they're
fill
like
the boot."
highwaymen.
Yeah, they are highwaymen. They're being
They're on the
highwaymen.
highway.
They're jamming
Pay
the.
the toll. You can pass.
And they're the highway troopers.
from muscular dystrophy, man.
Something happened.
Sorry,
What happened?
got too loud.
Sorry.
Feedback protection.
Is it the ghost?
I turned it off.
Sorry.
We're feeding. We'll be whistling the whole time.
Maybe the fireman union is monitoring this.
NSA, we got a flag
Actually,
on
I
the
was-
fill the boot. Could be a possible ISIS
A
cell.
reprisal.
I was listening
Drone
to
fire.
I was listening to a Bill Burr podcast where he was bitching about firemen for some reason at the beginning, and then like the
You know, like
firemen,
you do.
there's 2 fire trucks pulled up in front of his house. He's like, "What the hell are they doing?"
So you
here?"
like firefighters, huh?
Those volunteer firefighters are the ones we gotta go after.
All right, we have to speed up because we're at a half an hour and we haven't gotten through 8 values yet. So
We're like 3 values deep.
there's another one. It's important to maintain law and order. That one bothered me because
It's so ambiguous.
because there's a law above the law. So like if you believe in like the principles of law and order that
Right.
may lead you to disagree with the law du jour,
Yeah, what does it mean? Like, it's like we need to enforce the status quo, like what laws we have now? Or
we're abolitionists.
Yeah.
Did they believe in law and order?
Yeah, I hated this quiz. It was
I
so
think,
ambiguous.
I think the thing about
It's a
the
shitty quiz. I can already tell you that.
I got Stalin.
This is why I don't. This is why I don't click on these things. I don't
just
click on
said
these things
statist. That's all.
because it's just like, oh, so you're gonna kind of tell me what you think I might be. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's just it's some jackass who wrote this quiz. And okay, I'm gonna try to come up with some answers, but I'm sort of he's some way. You know?
Yeah, exactly.
It all comes out in these questions suck.
You enjoy
Like-
children starving.
This was
The
this is
Law and Order
this is
must
one of
be
the worst
upheld,
ones.
like-
I thought.
I think the 8 values quiz, it's not for like people like us though. It's for people who are like, I don't know what I believe at all. So what do I
Hillary
think?
Clinton's cool, but
Tell
on the
me.
other hand,
Yeah, exactly.
Tell me, ranker.com.
Yeah,
what kind
yeah,
of
but it
person
definitely
am
tries to
I?
skew. It tries to skew your results towards him. So he's like, so that when you go to the voting booth or whatever, hey, I'm this. I should now start looking at these
Yeah.
people. You know?
True.
He wants you on his side.
Yeah,
I
right.
was told by the internet I like Bernie Sanders.
Right, exactly.
Okay, well, let's review the. Let's.
He was
I
right there with
wanna-
Nelson
I'm
Mandela
sorry,
and
I
Gandhi. I love those guys.
So let's share our results first from this 8 values. I don't know if you guys made note of it or kept track, but I'll share mine. The thing I liked about this, just to get into a little of the review too, is that it had multiple axes. So there was 4 different axes. That's where the name 8 values comes from. So on the economic axes, I was 29% equality, 71% markets. Diplomatic axes, 49% nation, 51% world. So that's about even, right? Civil
Zionist
axis,
motherfucker.
74% liberal, 26% authority. I don't know how the fuck where that came from. Societal axis, 60% traditional, 40% progress. So again, about even. So I got libertarian capitalism. Jack, what did you get?
That's great.
I did too. 75.6 markets versus equality, 56.4 nation versus world, 65.4 liberty versus authority, and 62.7 tradition versus progress.
Nick, what did you get?
I was a libertarian capitalism as well, and
Where's Josh when you need him?
I was
I think this shit fair and
88
balanced.
markets, 51 balanced, 71 liberal, and 55 neutral.
John, how about you?
Dude, I'm ready. I was a moderate conservative.
Nice.
Statist.
Yeah, also statist.
Statist and muttering.
So I got a 33.5% for quality versus markets, 64.9 for nation over world.
Wow, impressive.
Yeah, America. So.
If you don't like it, you can get out.
Yeah. I saw a bumper stick the other day. I was like, "Calm down, sir. We're
Speak
driving to
English.
work."
Speak American.
Yeah, it should be like, if you don't like it, vote. Change. Okay. And I got 46.5% liberty. I'm very authoritarian, apparently. And 60% tradition over 40% progress.
John, you saw V for Vendetta and you were like, V's the bad guy.
What's
I
wrong
saw-
with the theocracy? They got great fucking
saw
roads.
no
No, black bags are really.
I saw V
big.
for Vendetta and I said, this is a movie that made hundreds of millions of dollars. I was like,
So Ethan, I'm gonna guess that you got libertarian capitalism.
Yeah, I did.
what a follower.
I got aces.
I think, if I recall correctly, I had more of the market.
That's all right. We don't gotta
More
run through the numbers, but
Okay.
but let's review these.
Doesn't care about mine.
No, okay. Well, do you have the numbers?
No, just
It's because they're all this. We know
now that I
they're
can
in the
be-
range. We don't need to hear.
now that I can be validated. 86% markets, 55.9% world,
That's interesting.
17.8% towards
markets.
liberty, and then 58.2% tradition. But again, all that I have no idea what this guy interprets as tradition.
So on the review side, I liked that there was multiple axes. I liked that there was like 4 different things that they were trying to scale you on. That just seemed like a unique thing about this quiz. But too many of the questions had false dichotomies, so for that I gave it 3 out of 5 stars. How about you, Jack?
It was a good sort of like, well, I don't know where I stand in the political spectrum kind of quiz, you know, for like your average 19-year-old or whatever voting first time voter kind of thing.
Right.
But yeah, it was fairly superficial and, like you said, sort of builds these dichotomies that are current but not necessarily valid.
How about you, Nick?
Yeah, I'd probably go 3 out of 5 as well.
Oh yeah, I'm supposed to rate it. Yeah, 3 out of 5 is fine. 2.5.
It wasn't bad. Some of the questions were annoying.
How do you do half a star?
I can
Yeah, it's on the pause.
I can do it. 2.5, you said? John, how about you? What'd you think about this
Yeah, I'd
quiz?
say the 3.5, like I said, I think it's good for people who don't know anything. I appreciated that it allowed you to do neutral answers, which I think is really important for these kind of quizzes, because especially like when we get into like I side with, where it gets really specific,
Yeah.
and you have a bunch of people pretending like they know about things they don't know anything about, and I like the idea that you can be like, I don't know. And
Or
that's-
again, if
and
they're-
how important it is to you.
Right,
I
exactly.
was like, no, yes, no,
Right.
yes.
But if it's a false dichotomy too, that's like I think where neutral is good. It's like, well, this is a bullshit question.
right,
or
exactly.
it's of like zero importance, like yeah, sure, but I don't really care.
Ethan, how would you review 8 values?
I'm gonna say 2.5 stars, just because I remember I hated taking this test when I took it. So I'm kind of going off
Give it
that
an
like
F.
emotional memory.
Pure entertainment value.
Feelings.
Yeah, my feelings.
So let's talk about I side with. This
my
was
God.
really popular last year. It seemed like a lot of people were taking this during the primaries, especially.
Gary Johnson helped that out.
I took
Talked about it.
Oh yeah, he did
every
actually.
time he talked.
He did pitch this, didn't
He
he?
probably owns it.
But yeah, I took this a few times, and I know I got different results at different points. But just going over the questions, do you support the legalization of same-sex marriage? And I liked that there was an option: take the government out of marriage and instead make it a religious decision. That seemed it was cool that they had
You know
these
why,
different
right?
options. Why?
Because it was like the text, enter your own answer here.
Yeah.
So you know there's pissed off libertarians like, well, no, I don't agree with it, but I think that people should just be able to do whatever they want, and like,
There
you know,
wa-
they condensed 5 paragraphs per angry response to like the one sentence.
There was one option. I saw it on a bunch of them that literally just said the government shouldn't exist. And
Yeah, exactly. So you know that there's just these ANCAPs like
Solid choice.
for
I was like, that's
furiously typing.
But I did like this about this quiz is that they had a lot of different options. I mean, it was tedious, honestly, having to go through them all and look.
And the
read
analysis
every
was
single-
great too.
Here's another question I noted. Do you support the use of hydraulic fracking to extract oil and natural gas? That's something I kind of wasn't really sure of because, again, it's like one of those things like, well, I don't really like it, but I mean, the only way to stop it, I guess, according to this quiz, is to have the government do something.
Right, which again is a false dichotomy because in a truly free market, I don't think it would exist anyways.
You think that hydraulic fracking only exists because of the statist system that we have?
Yeah, OPEC inflating the price of oil.
you think something replaces it, or you think just nothing on that scale? On that scale of energy production.
I think
exists?
novel technologies that are outside the current paradigm that are a lot easier to do and a lot
We don't-
cleaner and better.
We don't need to do that.
Like what?
No, not at all.
That was the question.
It
Like
affects
what? Biomass, energy. I mean, look around. There's so many like just sort of shabby woods that need to be sort of worked on. Anyways, you can run gasifiers. This whole state could run on wood gas power. There's no question about that.
I'll question it.
It's true, man.
I want sources.
The source of just the amount of acreage and square miles of just shabby sort of median highway border kind of forest around here that needs to be managed anyways. You always see CLMP out there cutting. They're always doing
they
stuff.
just mulch that
They just
stuff
take the
and dump
wood,
it.
yeah, chip it and chuck it because they're like, I got nothing to do. While they're burning diesel trucks. It's idiotic. It's completely idiotic. Makes
Yeah.
no sense physically. Physics does not add up. It's a mindset.
That's talking about a whole. That's like a whole paradigm shift of like
Exactly.
the entire energy world.
Yep.
Yeah, but I think that's
The entire world,
Yeah.
really. Because I mean, if you're talking about where everything's run by wood again, you know, you're how are you running your car? You're not like like
World War
right,
II,
right,
man.
exactly. You know?
Germans did it. They had the fucking big bags. They'd burn the wood gas in the gasifier kiln in the back of the truck.
Really?
It would push the gas into the front, into the carburetor, and it would run.
No kidding.
Yep. They do
Believe it or
that.
not.
India, all their home heating, all their cooking fuel is shit gas. They have these big bladders full of their feces.
I'm good.
It floats it up, and
Stay here we go. But I don't.
hey, if that's what it takes, right? To kill
But I
the whole
think-
planet to not get your fingers dirty. All right.
I think
That
there's
floats your
no. I think the thing about the I side with quiz that makes it different from the other one is it's not about like theoretical beliefs. It's about practical answers to questions. Like that's never gonna happen. Like the world's never going back.
Why?
Once it's like the thing that the quote. Once your brain expands to a new idea, it can never return. Like once you go.
It's not a return, though.
But
It's
when-
a synthesis of the old and the new into some brave new world.
But we could.
Once you send a shuttle into space and you're getting directions from your phone on a satellite that's orbiting the planet, you don't go back to the
MapQuest.
fuel. Yeah. Well, you don't go. Not even MapQuest. You don't go back to.
And that was like in the what is it, 2000s?
Busted out MapQuest now.
Like, and nobody uses
You
that.
don't go back.
Yeah, really.
Right, exactly.
Or like once you fly intercontinentally to England in 20 hours. You know,
Right.
you don't go back to running a steamship across the ocean.
Okay.
That doesn't happen.
So we don't go back, but we can at least stop injecting massive amounts of water
And poisonous
under
chemicals.
people's neighborhoods and stuff, or near people's. It's just going into the groundwater. It's going down there, and there's all kinds of. You don't know what the aquifer looks like underneath there. You're just shooting shit down there and hoping something's gonna happen. Like, yeah, they might have ground sonar and they could have a general idea of what they're doing, but it just seems so fucking reckless. I'm sorry to curse, but it just seems so. It's fucking reckless. And there's all kinds of weird stuff happening. Yeah, some places are working out okay. People are like, yeah, they're fracking down the street. You know, it's not bothering us. Our tap water's not on fire. But there's other places where there's just bad stuff happening. And I don't know. You know,
Yeah, but
don't.
And we can't go
But you and I
forward
still
either.
hear
It's not
homes.
like everything's hunky dory, and we can just go on in perpetuity as we are now. Why change? It's because the hard facts of physical reality are catching up with our ideas about physical reality that just don't sync up. They don't reconcile.
I don't want us to.
And a
be-
reckoning's
yeah.
coming. We're gonna either be ready for the reckoning, or we're gonna be caught with our pants down, looking at our phones that are no longer nothing because the fucking hunks of junk in the space aren't doing anything anymore.
Where will you be when Klaatu shows up? I was kind of surprised. I don't recall seeing an option that was like a more like libertarian response to that question for like the environment.
what's
Well,
it-
because most
Like, oh, as long
libertarians
as
are
they
drill
don't-
baby drill. Like, that's fine.
Yeah.
Well,
Climate change
I mean,
isn't real.
If it's affecting other people, then you have a case. So that's where I would stand.
Yeah, but those are two
Yeah.
different concerns you guys
Yeah.
talked about. You talked about drilling underground and possibly putting fire in tap. That's sketchy. And then climate change. Those are opposite things. So fracking does produce less than other conventional ways of getting oil. So that does help limit climate change. Now I'll admit that it's not as if the oil industry isn't subsidized, and they should stop subsidizing all of those energy industries.
And the fracking would go right out the window.
And maybe that's true, but it's like I don't know. I feel like there's just this. There's this instinct for all of us to be like, oh, this is terrible. Where's my plastic cell phone? Like, where's my plastic glasses? Or
Yeah.
like, and it's like, it's so easy to be like, this is what we should do, but I'm not going to do it. And it's like, I'm not there. And I don't agree with the idea that human beings are going towards a precipice of destruction. I think human beings over and over again for millennia have showed that we're way more capable than we think we are. And that we do find solutions to problems where there doesn't seem to be solutions. And I would agree that I think the free
the end
market
of the
is
rope,
probably
man.
the best way to find that solution.
90% of large fish species are gone.
Yeah.
The
but Al Gore lives on the
concentration
beach.
of
Like I don't.
the concentration of carbon in the
discussed this.
ocean. I'm not talking about the atmosphere, climate change, whatever. It's too iffy to even say one way or the other. Ocean acidification is a real thing. Once the coral bleaches, the ecosystems die, and that's it. There's not enough ingenuity in the world to figure out how to feed 1 billion people with no fish.
Do you know if that's because of? Do you know how much of that is because of mankind versus just natural?
If the concentration of
change.
CO2 goes up in the atmosphere, more gets absorbed in the ocean. That's all there is to it. It's physics. The atoms, instead of carbonate ions, they turn into bicarbonate ions. Shells can't use them to make their carbonate skeletons, and they bleach and they die. So it doesn't matter, really. It's not even a question worth asking.
But
Why not?
has that happened before?
Yeah, and the Permian extinction was one of the largest extinctions in the fossil record. You know, it's like 95% of all phyla died. And they think that was due to volcanism, a natural occurrence of excessive carbon in the atmosphere that absorbed into the ocean and killed all the shellfish.
So the next question that I noted on here was, should the president offer tax breaks to individual companies to keep jobs in the U.S.? And the closest thing I could find was, no, the government should not interfere with the free markets, but it's kind of ironic because it's about tax breaks. Like, what if you just don't...
No taxes.
Taxes.
Yeah.
So, yeah, because they're calling a free market... Like, what is a free market then?
Yeah.
But again,
a free market is one without tax breaks but
Yeah.
taxes.
But again, I think that's because I side with is asking you like what you want this president to do.
Yeah, and it's a lot of current event stuff. It
Yeah.
seems to me like I side with more than any of the other quizzes was actually taking like headline,
Right.
crossfire debates or like Hannity and Combs kind of debates and just saying, well, who do you side with in this debate?
Right.
Whoa. I just figured it out.
See what I did there?
I didn't even get it until right now.
And the last question that I noted was, should the Federal Reserve Bank be audited by Congress? And the one I picked was yes, but I would prefer to abolish it and return to the gold standard.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, I thought it should say return to free banking. 'Cause
Yeah.
that'd be preferable to gold standard.
Yeah. Being forced with one option.
Yeah, because a gold standard is still saying, the government saying, okay,
Yeah.
this
Gold
is
is
our
worth
standard.
this much dollars.
Yeah.
Go ahead and have fun.
Yeah. No, I agree.
So, my results on this, I got 81% Gary Johnson, and then I threw in the guys that dropped out too.
Yeah.
So 79% Rand Paul, 47% Daryl Castle, which is funny because
Yeah, I got Daryl Castle.
Daryl Castle was the guest on Primo Nutmeg number 47. So that was a weird little bit of synchronicity there. Donald Trump, 37%, Jill Stein, 36%, Bernie Sanders, 28%, Hillary Clinton, 12%.
I got 9% for Clinton.
Yeah. Actually, and I don't
Could
know
not
if you
disagree more.
I don't know if you guys did this, but you can add in the previous election cycle. So
I did
actually,
the dropouts too.
So I had 95% Ron Paul. So Ron
Yeah,
Paul
me too.
was-
92.
was the highest. And then they have also for I side with they do parties as well. I don't really know where they get the party stance from. I don't know if that's from their website or they're just
Yeah, it could be their platform.
amalgamating
probably,
shit.
I would imagine there.
But 81% Libertarian Party, 50% Constitution, 45% Socialist, 44% Republican, 43% Green, 33%.
Damn left anarchists. It makes fucking no sense to anybody.
Okay, right.
It'd be really great if there was no government and the government enforced it. That'd be my favorite.
But on the little map thing, I was like almost in the middle, and I was like slightly libertarian. I was like a
Yeah, me
moderate
too.
centrist libertarian,
Yeah, moderate
which makes no
libertarian.
fucking sense. Because how am I
95% Ron Paul.
Yeah, and 81% Gary Johnson. So what the and it's 7? Yeah,
Should be dyed in the wool, man.
Someone watching that does not understand Ron Paul.
You got Ron Paul
Whoever
on
wrote
yours?
that in.
Yeah.
you can do
For the 2012.
Oh, from the 2012.
yeah, it's like
okay.
C 2012 candidates. 94% isolationism, 84%, or I don't know if it's percentage or points or whatever, but 94 isolationism, 84 decentralization, 72 laissez-faire. I was an even split between capitalism, I guess, right? Is it 50? I don't know how the numbers work. I don't know if it's like a margin
I don't know if it was like
over
1 to 100. It wasn't a percentage.
50% or 50 capitalism, 88 small government, 58 pacifism, 24 deregulation, which is weird. I'm thinking it's a margin over.
What'd you
the
get
other
for
one.
tender versus tough?
I didn't even see that part.
Oh, because you can like open the political themes, so I got like a whole bunch more.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so I got 16% tender versus tough, or 16.
Cock.
That's what I said in the chat.
Oh, yeah, I remember. Oh, yeah.
Spoiler alert.
I just kind of let it
I'm
go.
22% tender.
Aw,
Let's go
I saw
on.
you wrote that, and I just like whatever. I just ignored it.
this guy's weird.
It's like, I'm not a cock.
But Jack, it says that you're like a moderate centrist libertarian too.
Moderate libertarian, yeah.
Okay.
And I'm not moderate about anything, so.
Nick, how about you?
Yeah, I got the same. I thought that was weird.
It is weird. What the fuck are they doing? They're doing something wrong.
That must be the max value for libertarian, is you're like, can only be 30
Yeah,
libertarian.
you can't possibly be any more than that.
That wouldn't make any
That's
sense.
not allowable.
John, how about you? You looking?
Yeah, I'm getting it up here. So with parties, and actually it's weird. My number one was 79% with Gary Johnson, and then it said I side with the Republicans on most issues. But it was 75%.
Gary Johnson's kind of Republican.
Yeah, but it's weird though because it was 75% Republican and 75% Libertarian. But they said I don't know if they know how math works.
Yeah,
That's the same number.
the results were confusing for this
You're
one.
135% libertarian.
It's almost like I think they have too much data where like they don't know how to
Yeah.
organize it or
That
something.
might be.
I think it's the amount of like issues you agree with them on. So like if you agree with like 95% of Ron Paul's policy ideas or stances.
Well, you got to imagine it gets pretty crazy with the amount of questions they have,
Yes, true.
and you have the answers. And
Gary
you have-
Johnson's
And
founding
they're
out.
weighted.
And they're
Yeah,
weighted, yeah.
yeah.
Like that's kind of crazy math they're trying to do there.
Did you get the anthropocentrism versus environmental
I
axes?
didn't expand
No.
that out. So
No, there were some weird ones. Unilateralism versus multilateralism.
I got 55% socialist.
really,
See?
Impossible. So
Well, you want people to get along, but you
Yeah.
don't want to force people to get along.
That's
Is
right.
that so hard to understand? We can work together, but I'm not going to force you to.
so John, like on the political diagram that they draw there, do you know where you were?
No.
Multiculturalism versus assimilation. You got 100 assimilation. You are Borg.
So I took this.
A long time ago.
Yeah, I took it like right after the election, probably like 2 months after, because then I changed towards a even more libertarian
Who do I side with?
side, whatever. Than before the election, where I was more conservative leaning. And then I was about to take. I screwed up, so I didn't take the full quiz. I kind of like went through it. And then about halfway through, I just said, "Screw it, I'll see what I get." So I clicked. I just skipped like half the questions, and
You're a madman.
so I got 82%.
Anarchy, bitch!
82% Donald Trump, but
Really?
60%
I ain't vote
Gary
for Trump.
Johnson.
It sounds like I voted for Trump.
They still put me with the Libertarian Party though.
That's what I'm
70.
saying. The results make no sense.
Yeah,
They're all over the place.
79%. So I mean,
Do you like where they mapped you though? There's like a map, right?
do you know which tab it's on?
It's like
Well, it's like Spekr. I thought that was weird because the map moved as you
Oh.
went.
Yeah, you put me as
So
the-
like I'm like, well, I don't want to be that far.
I noticed
Maybe
that
like
too.
change my answers.
I noticed that
Oh
too.
yeah, it's Spekr. Yeah, they got me at a right libertarian, but just barely. But again, I didn't take the full thing.
Yeah,
so.
mine put me as I just found it as moderately libertarian.
I'm gonna do this tonight, and I'm gonna try and break it and get
Moderation
ANCAP.
is a theme.
I'm
Wait,
gonna
so
get
let's
ANCAP
just
on this one.
Calm down for a second and think about
Well, that's
this.
because the questions are always like the questions are crazy. They're like some of the. Do you think the government should be allowed to kill whoever they want at any
Who
time?
comes up with
Yes.
Who's,
Like who
who's
says that?
creating these quizzes? Who are these people?
I gotta
Gary
be honest.
Johnson.
Gary
I side
Johnson,
with,
yeah.
I side with isn't that bad though. It really
New
isn't.
Yorker
As
writers.
far as who
I
you
don't think it
side
was
with,
that bad. I personally gave it 4 stars. I thought that it was really good. I liked that they utilized multiple axes.
Yeah,
Is that right?
they did.
And some
so-
you didn't even look at. There was like 16 of them or something.
But I did think that I didn't like. It was kind of daunting, honestly. It seemed like there was a lot of questions and a
Yeah.
lot of options. But even with all of those options, there were still like those things I noted. There was things that I didn't like. I was also upset that they didn't. That it seemed like they removed people. Like I took this before. I did take this before. I took this last year during the primaries, and there was like I was 97% Austin Peterson and like
Yeah.
99% some other like anarchist guy that was running in the libertarian primaries.
Daryl, what's his face?
Daryl
Is that-
Is it Daryl?
Yeah, Daryl Perry. I was getting
Daryl Perry,
like
yeah.
nothing but him the whole time. Like,
Yeah.
who is this guy?
He's
Yeah, but
on
now
that.
he's not on there anymore. They like took all those guys out, which kind of pisses me off.
He's one of the hosts of that Free Talk Live show I mention every time I come on your podcast.
Oh, he
Oh,
hosts
okay.
that?
Yeah,
Oh, really?
Really?
Yeah, he's one of the he's one of the co-hosts.
Yeah, he's cool.
So I just started listening to that.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
And then
He's on like Thursdays or something like that. He was like one of the main hosts for a while.
Really?
Yeah.
But yeah, the reason I didn't give it 5 stars, I just thought it was a little inconsistent, and I didn't know how I side more with Ron Paul than Gary Johnson, but then I'm a centrist libertarian.
Is this what you do at work? Like on a Thursday afternoons, 2:30, or like?
How many stars would you give this?
I'm gonna type up my reviews of these political quizzes.
Hope lumber doesn't.
Yeah,
make me
working
more
hard on
Saturday.
the Anderson account, boss.
How many stars do you give this?
Yeah, 4 sounds good. I mean, I liked how thorough it was. It did take a long time. It was kind of tedious, but it got decent results at the end. If you just ignore like what political party you belong to or whatever. But like who I sided with made a lot of sense to me. I'm like, oh yeah, I do agree with that guy a lot. Or like you go and finally read their campaign platforms, and you're like, yeah, it's pretty much like campaign platforms.
Nick, how would you rate this one?
Yeah, I'd give it 4 probably. It did at least put you in the right camp. I didn't realize that you could see the 2012 candidates too. I feel like that was a better representation having that.
I think that's accurate. I think I'm
got-
closest to Ron Paul.
Yeah.
But
No question.
just all the other shit, like the mapping particularly. John, how about you?
Yeah, I'll say 4. I think for me it was pretty much right. It was a little weird the way they did it, where it's like you're libertarian but you Republican, but it's the same percentage. So it's a little weird, but all in all, I mean, like if I didn't know anything, if I didn't know who I was going to vote for anyway, I guess it would help. I didn't vote for the person it gave me, but yeah, I thought it was pretty helpful for all these.
Can I
things
ask
that
you who you
people
voted for?
for president?
Am I allowed to?
You can ask. I'm not going to tell you. No,
Okay.
I didn't vote for anybody for president. I
Really?
left it blank. Yeah.
But you voted for the
Bigger
other
man than me.
things?
Yeah, I voted down the rest, but I didn't vote.
Did you vote for vice
president.
president?
No.
Is
Can you do that?
No.
No, you're right. Actually,
No.
let's do it together.
No, it's together. But yeah, no, I skipped the first and then voted down ticket.
Ethan, how would you rank? What the hell is this called? I side with.
I'm gonna say conditionally. Right now, 4 out of 5. If I can't break it tonight and get ANCAP, then probably like 3.
Herd mentality for all these.
I really don't think you're going to break it. 'Cause
libertarians.
I went-
Listen, but like, just the thing you're asking it to do is like it's a
Is it
political
already-
quiz to tell you which politician you'd side with, and you're asking it to tell you none of them. Don't
Well,
side
no,
with
no,
them.
I didn't.
They
I
shouldn't
didn't
exist.
I didn't fully take it yet.
The state is violence.
That's all it says right in the center of the screen.
That's a great idea.
Your
for any
computer shuts
website.
down.
No,
So we should do that the next election. Make this crazy political quiz, and then at the end, just flash
Just
it on
Guy
the screen. The
Fawkes'
state is
face.
violent.
This is who you vote for, stupid.
Support Russell Roberts.
Oh, that is such a great idea. That'd be really cool. We should do that next year.
I like
Or
that.
next election.
Sorry.
I like that they had some like articulate answers you could give.
Yeah.
Like you could just
I like
say
that
like
too.
yes,
There were a lot of
but this.
Yeah.
What I didn't like that they didn't say like the importance of that issue to you.
They did.
You know, they did.
Yeah.
They said
They did.
when.
That means
hit
you
that
have to
down
get
arrow,
4
bro.
points.
Yeah, now I'm even a
more,
worse
man.
mistaker.
My whole world is blown.
All right. Well, we're at an hour right now, so we did 2 of the quizzes. We got 2 more to go through. We're gonna take a break, and we're gonna be right back.
Right.
So we were just talking about wildlife when we weren't recording, and one thing I think we should note is here in eastern Connecticut is the gypsy moth caterpillars, which are eating all of the leaves.
Are they invasive?
Yes. Yeah.
Well,
From where?
they brought them in to like I believe to mate with local silkworms or
Yep.
caterpillars or
Something
shit.
like that.
And then like they let them loose in Massachusetts.
Kinky entomologists. Like, oh, I want to see this.
So yeah, for those of you who aren't from Eastern Connecticut, they're everywhere. People are putting like strips around their
Save
tree
yourself.
trunks to stop the caterpillars from going back up the trees once they fall off.
Also, they take craps all over you while you walk around.
They poop constantly.
You can hear it in the woods anyway.
I was at
Is that
Station
noise
Lake.
them eating or them shitting?
It's
Eating
both.
and shitting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just a big conveyor belt.
I don't think I've heard this or recognized.
It sounds like rain. It
Yeah.
sounds like
You can
it's,
hear
you're
it.
like,
You
is
can
it
probably-
sprinkling
Stick
out?
your head out the
I'm
door.
sure if
like-
you
Go
out there, you
walk
can
out
hear
to the
it.
edge of
Yeah,
the
go to
woods.
the edge of the woods. You'll hear it.
Right now, go.
We'll be back.
We'll be back.
Just
I went on.
listen for a minute.
I went on Bastion Lake
He's
today, and
actually
like PJ was there, and he's like, "Oh man, Axel's got like a caterpillar poop all over his like neck and shoulders from like floating in the water because he has like a
Really?
floaty kind of
Jesus.
thing." And I looked out, and I'm like, you know, my nose is kind of like at the surface, and it's just like little dots, little black dots. I thought it was like pollen or something.
No.
It's fucking gross.
But
man.
it was caterpillar crap. And
Any,
it was on the
driveway?
whole- I mean, as far as the eye can see.
Any driveway you go on, it's covered in that
Yeah,
shit.
picnic benches. We were at a Salmon River a few days ago too, and it just said like sweeping the poop off. Even Vivian,
Yeah, I can confirm.
my 1.5 year old daughter, was like poop poop. She was like brushing the caterpillar poop when we were on the bench today at Shane's house. It's fucking gross.
Yeah, it's pretty bad. Is there any way to stop this epidemic? It's been getting worse every year.
Healthier forests, the trees.
Forest fires.
Trees have an immune system.
How
Right.
long until we stop like introducing non-native species?
Well, this was like 200 years ago.
Oh, this was that long?
Yeah. It's
You want to
been
hear
getting-
something retarded? The worst native or like very invasive species introduction I ever heard was that in Central Park, like in 1885, the local like thespian society
Oh, this
released starlings.
Starlings, yeah.
Released all the birds that
Poe,
are
right?
mentioned
Or
in
no,
Shakespeare.
Yeah.
So starlings happened to be one of them, and from there on out, it
Yeah.
was just. But I'd say like the worst invasive species, if I had to rank them, would be chestnut blight, because the forests around here were like a third percent of the trees were chestnuts, and we've completely lost that. It was like a vitally important part of the ecosystem for like feeding animals and stuff.
And yourself. You can eat those.
Yeah, I mean the Indians lived off them.
I know in England they have a problem with gray squirrels.
Yeah,
Just like open game. over
yeah.
there.
There's a few that
Is there-
came across the opposite direction.
Yeah, they're crowding out the red squirrels over there. So
Squirrels and goldenrod's a big problem in Europe too.
gray squirrels are fatter and meaner. They can throw their weight.
But it's a product of imperialism. It really is. Like it sounds like a stretch, but you go to any church that's older than 150 years old in Connecticut, and there's an enormous copper beech in the front yard, and those came directly from China and Japan on the old China trade, which is sort of the opium for porcelain and silk enterprise that a lot of captains around here engaged in. The Boston Blue Bloods, their money comes from that enterprise. The Middletown, the Russell House, Wesleyan University, all that shit was financed with money from these pirates, basically. Opium runners, clipper ship captains and stuff. And Skull and Bones was founded by Russell.
Really?
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah, and the Templars, when they were on trial, were tried for worshiping a disembodied head. What's the flag of pirates is a disembodied head with the two crossed legs.
Interesting.
All Templars are buried with crossed legs. You look at their chapel mausoleums and stuff, and they all have crossed legs when they're buried.
That's a weird charge.
Crossed leg bones and a disembodied head.
Come on, man. It's great.
You're worshiping the head. Oh, okay.
So,
Called Baphomet.
And
And it would prophecy. It would talk to him.
all right. Well, let's get back to the quizzes. We have 2 more to go through. The next one is the political compass, which actually seems really popular. I've seen.
Yeah, I take
people's-
this one a lot of times.
Well, I've seen
Facebook
people's results
profiles.
everywhere. There's like whole Instagram accounts where people just like make fun of this or like post their results and shit.
Yeah.
I've actually like seen like in Facebook groups, people will ask everyone to post their results from the political compass specifically.
there was a time when people would set that to their profile picture. So you
Really?
just look at it and you're like,
Well, yeah, like because
I
there's
don't want to talk to
Yeah,
this
exactly.
guy. This guy's shitty.
there's like memes and cartoons.
Delete
and
request.
shit.
You instantly know who to hate right off the bat.
They'll be like
You don't even need to have a name. I just hate you
Yeah.
already.
Well, there'll be like political cartoons where like they'll show a guy with just his face is like where he is on the political compass.
Oh, I saw one that was like some guy who was right authoritarian and some dude's like, dude, you're too stuck up. You need this, and hands him a stogie, and the dude like smokes and just flips
It falls
down.
Yeah.
Can I say that I hated this quiz? This is my least favorite one.
Well, let's
Go
talk
on.
about
It's
some of the
English.
questions. One, yeah, I hated this too because here's one. It's a sad reflection on our society that something as basic as drinking water is now a bottled, branded consumer product. Again, like it's yeah, but it's a sort of thing like how do you stop that? You're gonna have the government go in and oppressively, like, stop people from bottling water.
Yeah, you do that. So
Do they?
yeah,
Well, yeah, they stop people from collecting fucking rainwater, don't they now?
Yeah, in like Colorado, that's California's water. Like they signed some agreement
Yeah.
where like
There
California owns their water.
Water is a weird thing. There's all sorts of issues with bottling water because like it's not like when a water pumps water from a place, it doesn't like the way water aquifers work. It's not like they're pumping water from the mile square place that they own. So like when you pump water out of the ground,
It finds its own level, so everywhere else.
everywhere in the area goes down. So it's not as if you're taking water from your land. You're taking water from everything. So that's a situation where it's like I don't really understand what a solution there's no solution. I don't really know what a free market solution to that is.
I'll tell you.
It's like-
I'll tell you right now.
I knew there would be someone.
It's to increase infiltration in soil and to increase rainfall, and you do that by having plant cover. You know, if we grew back a lot of the prairie and trees that we had when this continent was founded, the weather would get rainier. It would be that fundamental to change.
But who does that?
Anyone who wants to make money or to, in a society that's truly free, if such a thing like a common money would exist, which I don't really know if it would, then it would be just whoever increases their actual capital, like in the physical world, real capital. Right now, people's values and people's idea of worth are tied up in these abstract ideas that aren't really like tangible. They're not real per se. So in a world where like we were living in a real world, then real stuff would be important or valuable. So if you can make it so that's what's valuable, then people will increase that in order to increase their value. And since that's actual value and it's real, physically real, then it's worthwhile.
Yeah, I don't think that translates to real life though, because it's not.
But it is real.
But it's not. No, like I don't think.
It's the only thing that is real.
Like
the
so,
real stuff.
no, that's not what I mean. I mean like cost benefit ratio. Like for instance, recycling is good for me. Do I always recycle? No. Is it to my benefit to recycle? Yeah, if I take it down that logic train. But like, how many people do that? Because you assume the other guy will recycle. Right? So, like, how many plants do I have to plant personally for me to see a benefit that there's more rain? And that's assuming that I'm someone who wants there to be more rain.
Well, if you have, say you're a corn farmer in Nebraska, you probably own like 20,000 acres. So if you yourself decided to start planting trees instead or restoring prairie, I think it could make a difference.
Yeah.
I mean, any molecule of water that's being evaporated off a plant surface or a soil is making a difference.
Right.
Just a matter of how many molecules of water does it take to a difference that's demonstrable to people. I don't know. I mean, I think that if people had a value set that was more in line with like the physical reality of the world.
Yeah, I just think real people don't.
But why? They did once. We killed them all.
No, I don't think they did. I don't think they had the access to resources and technology that we have.
No, they certainly. I would fundamentally disagree. I think that they did understand the way the ecosystem worked to a large degree, and were facilitating that to their benefit and the ecosystem's benefit at the same time. Because ultimately, they're. If you want to say aims, it's an emergent system, so it really has no aims. But what the goal that it's driving towards is the same, because we are part of the ecosystem. There's not a difference.
Well, I think that's the thing that makes them different from us, is that they hadn't developed the technology to rise above the ecosystem, so they're part of the ecosystem. So a native tribe never gets to the point where they strip the land of resources because the resources can't supply that, so they die. And so you never get to the point where you have stripped barren lands because the people just die. So
but they facilitated an increase in the productive capacity of the land, which allowed them to increase their population without stripping it and ultimately committing suicide. Like the forests were maintained through fire. Like you say, they didn't have the technology, but fire and wood, I mean, you can do a lot of change if you aim fires, build fires where you want them, where you don't want them. And they were specifically producing chestnut forests to feed themselves and their game so they can hunt it. Fire opens up the canopy. You can sneak up on shit and kill it the way you want. They had the ability to do a lot, but they worked with what they had in order to increase the abundance so they wouldn't have to strip it bare. You know, it sounds complex and philosophical, but I think they understood that.
I just don't think so. I just think when you have 100 people, you can consume pretty rapidly and not worry about it. And when you have 100 people and you don't have fossil fuels and you don't have anything else, and you're living in a almost constant state of starvation. And
Well, I'll tell you, in 1491, the largest city in the world was Tenochtitlan. It wasn't in Europe; it was in America.
yeah, but by the time settlers got here, most indigenous people hadn't even invented the wheel yet. Like they're not. Like
But you don't need a wheel
Well, it helps when you have a country.
to denude a landscape of its resources and ultimately commit suicide as a society.
Yeah, see, but I just don't agree with that. Like in virtually one day, we almost doubled our food stores without getting. When we genetically modify grain to make it more disease resistant, one guy basically doubled our food reserves without any
Oh, it's certainly
obvious
negative. Certainly.
Well, without any increased amount of resources. Like that is something that's insane.
But it is an increased amount of resources. How many resources did it take to come up with the ability to splice genes? How many? I mean, collectively throughout time. Think about it. And towards what end to double it once? I could quadruple it in 100 years.
Yeah, but that's like so right now globally, like starvation is less than it's ever been in the history of mankind. Poverty and starvation and unnecessary death are lower than they've ever been in the history of mankind, and that only happens.
But that can't be
because of
true
technology.
statistically because there's more people.
No, the percentage of starvation right now is lowest than it's ever been.
But there's
in
still
mankind.
starvation.
But the gross
But it's
suffering
the
is higher than
percentage.
it ever has been.
But like gross is a weird thing to be concerned about because
Why
it's
is
like,
percentage the right thing?
because it's a greater amount of if you have a greater amount of people and the percentage of people starving lowers, that means you have more people not starving than you had before, even just in numbers.
But you also have more people starving.
Yeah, but those people exist.
And they're starving to death.
Like fundamentally, I
Hell of
think
an
to
existence.
exist is better than not to exist.
Yeah, I agree. And I think existing in a world where abundance facilitated by working with global systems that actually exist in the real world is preferential to having a larger amount of people who are not starving and also starving. I think population's great. I don't think there's a population problem. I don't think population control is a thing that we should be concerned about. And I think people, if they decided to operate in the real world, would have value inherently because they were facilitating abundance for everything, not even just everybody, just everything. You know what I'm saying? So like that way you can have as many people as you can keep facilitating the abundance. And the way the planet works and the way nature works is that the more you allow it to become what it wants to become, the better things are going to be, just naturally. It just has to occur. It has to.
I just don't think I agree.
Well, that comes with the feedback mechanism of if enough people see the effects of what's going on, it'll change.
Right, exactly.
And
So
that's the way it should be. People should change voluntarily when everybody sees the change.
because
of it.
it's better.
Right.
It's just, are you a crazy person? No. Okay, do you like things being better? Yes.
Right.
Okay, well then this is obviously better.
Right.
That's all there is to it.
And
You don't
that's
have
why-
to
and
force
that's why,
people to
you-
do it.
Right. And that's like the whole climate change argument and all that stuff. I mean, that's why it becomes why we have to make sure that it doesn't become a political argument and that it's more. We can't let the political side of it cloud the science. I think
Right.
I think it is affecting the science of it because they're trying to use it.
Well, the
politically.
argument itself, it's Trump's move. It's talking past the sale, well, is climate change an issue? Like, what is more of an issue? Is it more the just complete collapse of, species extinction is not something you can argue about. Like, what is the data in? Do the models agree on whether a species is extinct? It's fucking extinct or it's not.
Right.
So, are there more species extinct? What's the rate that it's occurring? How can we prevent that from happening? Those are real problems that can be addressed by anyone who's not crazy, can understand and see.
Right.
That's why I mentioned ocean acidification earlier. It's not an argument. There is no argument. it's physics. It's chemistry. You put more carbon dioxide dissolved in a fluid, then carbonated ions are going to become bicarbonate ions. There's no argument. That's not an argument. So we can already say, well, there's a crisis, because of things that are actually occurring, not this sort of, well, gee, is it happening? We're measuring ice in the Arctic. It's so obscure. It's so like esoteric and several degrees removed of the data observations, right? They collect the data, then they compile the data,
Right.
then they analyze the data, then they analyze the analysis. And
Right. Why isn't that the lead, though? Why isn't that the lead argument?
Exactly, because they don't want the problem to be solved.
Right, exactly. If that's not if that's not a real problem, then why doesn't anybody who's advocating for that for trying to do something about climate change, why isn't that their lead argument if they care, if they really care?
Exactly. Because they want to sell Leafs and have fucking polar bears
Right.
give software engineers fucking hugs in their fucking parking lots.
Right. I think that climate change is more related to solar activity, to be honest with you, than what's happening
Dude,
here.
it blew my mind in geology class. They're like, oh yeah, there's these things called Milankovitch cycles. So like the sun's our orbit around the sun changes every 100,000 years. Stuff becomes more intense.
Right,
A lot of
exactly.
times we have archaeological
A lot of the
record of shit. I'm like, so this, this is naturally happens.
Right.
So why are we talking about if we're causing these degree changes in the air? Like, they can't model the weather. Look at the fucking weather forecast. 7 days out, they're like, it could rain.
Right, exactly. And they know like
It's
the
ridiculous.
sun's
with
patterns
flares
too.
and stuff, it
with solar
changes,
flares,
sure.
every 11 years there's like a period where there's usually more solar
Dude, in the
flares.
60s, they
and
saw
that
fucking
affects
the
climate
aurora
cycle.
in Mexico.
Right. That affects the climate cycles on the Earth. They know that for a fact. But then if they have a period where they're expecting it and it doesn't happen, where it is on a cycle but it doesn't happen, that can affect things too, where it throws off all of their, what they.
Well, yeah,
what they're
because they're
expecting
using
to happen.
past years.
Right,
so
exactly.
if the cycle suddenly changes or
Right,
there's an
exactly.
abrupt change, they
Right.
have no idea what's going
Right,
to happen.
exactly. It's like
So it raises the question, who benefits from the false argument?
Right.
And it's going back to that monolithic military-industrial
The thing is,
complex.
like, if that thing is powerful enough that just mildly rotating something toward it can change the amount of degrees
Exactly.
by 60 degrees average, if just a minor that, then wouldn't something happening to the thing that's giving off all that energy changing have more
an effect on our tiny little rock that's
on the tiny little rock that's going around
frickin'
it.
size?
It's just it seems very short-sighted to think that we are causing it.
And on that point, think about how, like you said, how much power that has over our planet, the star that we orbit. Think about the amount of energy that comes down on the surface of the Earth like every day.
Yeah.
Where do you think oil comes from? Oil was once algae, it was once plants, it was once small plankton that eventually, because they absorbed the sun's energy and settled down, they were able to be turned into this hydrocarbon. What do you think trees are made out of? They're made out of carbon and hydrogen, Like, we can definitely take that chemistry and use it to our advantage as it happens. There is no need for, I'm not a big fan of, like, sustainability in the polar bear give you a hug kind of sense, because they're like, oh, well, wind energy and solar power and this and that. Like, do you have any idea where, like, PV cells come from, the components or the materials that make that stuff up? Like, it's these horrid strip mines. It's these terrible slave operations. Like, it's just the ultimate
It's the
scum,
temple of
evil
doom.
end of the earth. It really is. Like Tulsa Doom and Conan the Barbarian kind of
Kids
stuff.
getting whipped.
Whips,
Big
snake
conveyor belts.
pits,
Thuggies
etc.
with turbans. It's bad.
So, like, sustainable to me means actually sustainable. Like, well, the sun rises and sets every day. If it doesn't, we're in a whole lot of trouble. We don't have to worry about it. So that's sustainable. That is eternal. That is happening. And to turn it to like a religious sort of thing, like, that to me is living with faith that, God will provide for you, because he set up all these things. He set up this whole mechanism that we're part of. So, like, if you can tap into that, then you're like, you're living right, I think.
You know what the real conspiracy is?
No, tell me.
Global cooling.
In the 70s.
Did you ever see that Twilight Zone?
Global cooling.
you see that Twilight Zone where like the Earth is heating up? It's heating up and like
Yes.
they're freaking out, and
Yep,
then like
the girl
guy.
in the building with
And
the
they-
girl in the
they-
house.
I forgot it's a guy or girl, but
And they
they
fly
wake up and then
Yeah.
they're really flying away from the sun,
Huh.
and they're having a fever dream or whatever.
Yeah, I have seen that one.
I
So.
thought you were going to say they were flying airplanes around to create cloud cover and turn sunny days into cloudy, shitty days
Happened
that
today.
are cold and all kinds of crap like that. But I don't know.
So,
What do
Nick
I
and
know?
Ethan, I have to ask you about this other question that I liked that was actually on this quiz was
Which one
land.
are we talking about again?
Land,
I
the
side
political
with
compass.
Political compass.
Land shouldn't be a commodity to be bought and sold. And I know we kind of discussed this earlier. But
Yeah.
Just if you think about like consumer products, like all this shit is like made, you know, like people have to put labor into it. But when you're buying and selling land, like the land exists before you exist and it exists after you exist. So like aren't titles over land just kind of like this legal fiction that we kind of promulgate, or like can people actually voluntarily buy and sell land?
This is one of those issues that I still don't really have like a concrete I guess perception, because I know that I'm not thinking on all the bases with this, because it's just
It's a sticky
really
wicket.
broad, yeah, it's a really broad thing. What I've thought of coming into the fore with this is that like I said before, like the basic determinant of who owns what land is force. I mean, even if you homestead land, you're still making that claim on like, well, this part is mine.
Isn't that true of all
At the barrel.
all
of a gun.
possessions though?
Yeah, of all possessions, but I think land is a particularly
But you can source like who created something or why it was created, but
Yeah, but ultimately it's created from land that was either taken by force or not.
I suppose that's true.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
everything is force. That's life.
But so, well, that lines up with what I'm saying is that like the most basic thing of like, well, who owns what land is force. So, I think that yes, ultimately you're gonna have to say who you're gonna have to accept that people can trade land as a commodity, because otherwise you're forcing it to remain for the common, and that's still like either way there's force involved. Like one is saying, you know, well, this guy with his lean-to, like screw him, he can't do that because he's making a claim, or you know, otherwise you say, well, no one has anything, and then you can't have shelter and claim it as yours.
What are you doing? You making a claim out there? Don't be claiming in my yard.
I'm homesteading.
I'm
this
claiming
bitch.
over here. Like just pointing guns at each other.
It's my leach field.
I think that really is what it. In my point of view, I do think that you should be able to own land, and I think that the reason why you should is because someone's always in the right, you know. So if some guy owns thousands and thousands of acres, and someone decides that they're going to settle on it because there's not really any, it's not turned into something. It's still an open piece of land that no one is occupying. They decide to do that. This guy doesn't pay attention, isn't using that land, can't place a claim on it other than that. Is he in the right to then force somebody off of it who is turning it into something, be it a home or a yard or a pasture or whatever? It comes down to right, and it comes down to arbitration. And we're not saying that,
but
there
it has to
shouldn't
be something.
right, exactly.
But to see that's a weird. You're selling past the question, or talking past the sale already. You know, like define improvement. You know, like if I wanted to make something like a wildlife preserve, or you know, it's
you would have to claim it as that.
And how
you'd have
would
to
the
claim
guy?
it. You'd have to claim it as that, and it would have to show as value, as having that value. You know, like because it would have to hold up in arbitration. You know, if it's worth something to people for that, and they're paying you to you know all that, and it's a legitimate it's legitimately that, then yeah, I mean. You should be able to own it as that if you turned it into that, and you bought it from somebody who claimed it or whatever, and it was yours, and you decided to turn it into that. You should be able to.
It's one of the big facets of like, I guess, libertarian philosophy for me that I see as subjective. I try and there's a lot of stuff that I have like objective perspectives on, or like I make an objectivist approach to it. But with land, like I said, you got force, and then you have who's going to enforce it, and that comes down to not just you, but the society. Like whatever is with you. Like if I'm with John and we're up in Nepal or something, and
all right, let's do it.
Cool adventure.
and I create some kind of like, let's say I homestead on a mountain and John homesteads it too, and I say, well, this is, this whole mountain's mine. John's saying this whole mountain's his. None of us are in the right, depending on whatever society comes up after that. If they, move around us and they're like, oh, you guys want to join? We're like, yeah. Well, this is my mountain, and John says, no, it's mine. Whoever they decide, unfortunately, like, that's who gets it. I mean, that's why we're not saying like, well, it's like the Indians deserve this land because we took it and then we said, no, it's ours. I mean, we gave some reservations and we, not all of it was taken.
I mean,
That might have that might have been such a mistake. Like if you
not
Indian
all of it
reservations are like
was
it's-
taken by force.
Those, like it's awful for people who live on them. It's,
Yeah, but that's
no,
on
I
purpose,
agree.
though.
Yeah, no, it's not. They're not.
Genocide in the most pure form.
it's terrible.
They're not all.
I don't-
They're
it's-
not like ideal. But
It's such a weird question because it's so like
bad.
I don't even know how to like
Yeah.
how to, like. It's a weird question because it's not a question you can be like, oh, this is an ethic I like, so I'm going to live with this now. Because it's like, guess what? It is bought and sold, and it's going to be because it has been as long as history has existed.
Yeah, but history's only existed for 1% of humanity's existence.
Yeah, but it's that's like saying like if I was a baby for like 150 years, you could say that's only 1% of your existence, but it's like I don't remember any of that, so what difference does it make? Like it's not my cultural remembrance, so
Yeah, but it is for them. Like Chief Seattle's letter to the president, the Indians. They're like,
but
how could you
Indians
own the
did make-
sea? How could
Indian-
you own land? It makes no sense
Yeah,
to us.
but
like,
again, but that-
we're part of that. We're not.
Yeah.
We don't own it. What are you talking
But that-
about? You
again-
can't.
yeah, but they still.
but
And you
yeah,
can.
that is taking it.
Sure, they did.
That is taking
And
a
there's
broad
not,
view.
if a grizzly bear is going on your property that you've homesteaded, are they trespassing? Like if you're walking around in your back 40 and a grizzly bear mama comes up and the two cubs are there and she mauls you, is she like violating your rights? I don't know. It's
no,
just
she's just being a bear.
There.
right. Who's defending her shit? And you're not like
But that's that even
taking her to court. We're the same way.
that's taking a broad view of Native America. Like there were tribes who didn't believe in land, and there were a significant amount of tribes who did believe that you could own
Yeah,
land.
well, who's this guy? Chief Seattle? What
Yeah.
tribe was he?
I don't know. They're on the west coast where Seattle is now.
Yeah.
Named it after him.
Well, I mean, you always hear like there were tribes. It's funny to me. It's funny to me sometimes. It's like there's two things. Two things I find funny is they say that there's this kind of idea that Native Americans are somehow like really peaceful or
Right.
something, and that they didn't like engage in warfare amongst.
Oh,
each
they
other.
certainly did. But
And they would wipe people out too. I mean,
Oh, yeah,
they
and
would,
enslave 'em?
Yeah, strike them from the.
I
strike 'em
saw a
from
movie
existence.
clip.
Sure.
It was on
That's
some
kind of my
ANCAP.
point.
You've seen it too, Ethan,
Yeah,
right?
it was like Custer.
I don't know what the hell movie that is, but they're it's it's weird. It's like a kind of nationalistic defense of property rights
Yeah.
because there's this like cavalry captain or whatever
I think it's
arguing
Custer.
with this Indian chief, and the Indian chief is saying, these are our lands, get off, and then the captain says, you stole it from this tribe and they stole it from
Yeah.
that tribe, so. It's kind of like showing the how it's not justified
yeah,
for
it's
them.
the
to
way she
claim-
goes.
It's
you know?
more of it was always more of a war of just cultures and ideologies. It was never like it's never really been a property thing
No,
because
there were property disputes. When we came here, there was big property disputes about herds of buffalo and those kind of things. Where this is our land where we graze, where we hunt herds of buffalo every year, and you come here and we're gonna kill you. And
Well, a lot of
Well,
those
you
guys
come
are
through on your
newcomers too because they
train.
had Spanish horses, so they
Yeah.
fucking spread
I
right
mean,
out.
I'm not justifying like
But
the
even then, they
genocide
were-
of the Native Americans.
they were
but
killing-
like the
yeah.
point is that some of them did have property rights, and even if none of them did it, I don't know why I would take my moral ethic on property rights from this part of the globe, but not this part of the globe.
No, yeah, I don't think either is equally as valid, but they're your property is what is yours. And that's really all it comes down to, whether you choose to define it as an ideology or a legal code. That's kind of up to your preference, and I think that would make a much more organized society. There's no question about that. There was, I mean, England had common law and stuff like that. It's definitely can be an emergent system. I don't think that's an issue or like a problem with it at all, but there are going to be dissidents who disagree with that.
The Cherokee made a good go of it, They actually like organized things and like wrote things down, and they,
But that was much
creating kind
later,
of a
that
structure.
was under
But yeah.
European influence, and Tecumseh, you almost got him too. It happens, but
No, I'm just saying as far as like trying to assimilate and trying to like work alongside, try to maintain a sort of, some influence and some clout, in the face of white society. But I think it's just,
well, they got the
again, it's
whole
a clash of
Trail of Tears,
ideology.
so-
You can't. It was. It's just racism. You know what I mean? Just like pure and simple. A lot of times it's just like they're different. Let's just get rid of them. Kind of thing. It doesn't go much further than that. I mean,
Or like,
you
when-
wear a red hat with white letters on the street now. You get beat the fuck up.
Well, it's fundamental differences, that
make Bitcoin great again. You get beat up.
you're sailing from the Azores in the Nina, the Pinta, and the Santa Maria. You haven't seen a woman in like 80 days, and then there's these like naked nymphs all hanging out on the beach greeting you, like, "Hey, baby," "Hey, yeah." You ravage a couple of them. The chief gets mad, and then you start skewering babies
The
on
rest
the
is just-
swords.
yeah.
This is national.
training your war dogs on like fleeing children. And
Yeah,
stuff.
that's the way she goes.
So the political compass, a lot of these questions really piss me off.
Moving away from spearing babies.
One of them, when you are troubled, it's better not to think about it, but to keep busy
That's such a
with more
weird-
cheerful
What?
things.
How political question is
Another one, abstract art that doesn't represent anything shouldn't be considered art at all.
I think that's
Yeah,
trying
but
to
there was, like,
determine
a
if you're like,
personal
that's trying to
personality kind of
determine
thing.
exactly, like
It's
if
just like
because there are certain personalities that are more likely
Authoritarian
to be
versus
like conservative, authoritarian, libertarian.
Astrology accurately explains many
Yeah.
things.
They're just
Why
trying to
does-
see if you're an idiot or not. That's all.
Some people are naturally unlucky.
that stuff's just like heavily skewed. Like
But what's the
It's-
point of it?
Hey man,
there is no point. That's why it's
Well,
stupid.
Chinese believe in luck. You think it's
So you're a communist.
Like if I say like
so you're a communist. That's how it works. If you say
Ipso
it's luck,
facto.
if I say like, oh, abstract, like if you make art, if you're like saying like, oh, this table's art, I'm gonna call it art, and I'm saying like, no, I don't think that's art. Like, how does that define my political beliefs? It doesn't.
well, I mean, the fact that you chose to be on that side of the spectrum instead of saying that it is art, and you are on the right side of the aisle, which is what they would have guessed, kind of proves
Yeah,
that
that's-
much.
Are they gonna say
Sort of
like, oh, it's
demonstrate
more
it.
of like a libertarian belief or not?
No,
it's just-
if you look at personality, like people who are more conservative, like me, people who are like math is great, art is kind of cool, are more likely to be conservative.
yeah, but just
I
the
went to
fact that
art
it's-
school, so it's kind of doesn't work.
But just
like,
the fact that it's like it's not a concrete thing though. Like it's not. Like,
No,
oh
it's
well,
not-
you're more
it's not
likely to be
proof.
here. I'm
No.
gonna put you here. Well,
Yeah,
I'm
it's-
not there.
well,
it's not proof. No.
It's completely subjective. It's like it could vary with every person. You
Yeah.
know, whether it's really whether that person in particular finds that interesting or sees it as art.
The one I didn't get. There was one that said.
So you got to push
it
the
said,
limits with data.
It said,
on its side.
"How much do you agree with the enemy of my enemy is my friend?"
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I was like, I don't even. Sometimes, like,
yeah, really.
Give me a situation.
sometimes it's ISIS, but sometimes it's you know what I
No,
mean.
it's
Like,
very
like-
bizarre. They didn't have a lot of like concrete, like questions with like a lot of context behind it.
Now is this
Yeah.
another one that you could have taken off of Facebook?
Yeah, this is probably like
It's
the
an
main
English
one
one,
shared.
though.
Actually,
No,
yeah,
dude.
this is probably the most
Fake
famous
news.
one.
It's an English one, so it's
Fake
weird.
news.
This is one that I hated.
This is the worst one.
If it's the first question.
Spekr.
If economic globalization is
Political
inevitable,
compass.
it should primarily serve humanity rather than the interests of transnational corporations. So it's already like assuming a premise.
It's way
Like-
bad.
Yeah,
Like
you-
yeah.
three premises in.
You know, well,
In
if
the event of
everything's going to
alien
be
attack.
controlled,
Should
should
be-
it help you or not? Like, well, so I still said I disagree, but like, it's just, I don't know, there's a lot of stupid, like, faulty premises.
But even though you're like, this is a stupid question, you try to answer it like as best you can. They get like the results. They're fairly accurate.
yeah,
They look
no,
like,
mine were pretty close.
hey, you're a Maoist.
Why? Let's talk about them. I actually didn't agree with mine. I got moderate centrist libertarian again.
That seems about right.
I don't think so. What'd you get?
Where were you on the?
I got,
I only printed the chart. I didn't.
On the economic
too.
left right. Shit.
Oh, I got
I got 1.75.
Me too.
Really?
Yeah, dead on.
And
So
then
must
on
have been to the right.
social libertarian against authoritarian, I got negative 2.1.
I got -4.
Oh, wow.
I got 2 more stupid questions on here. There's the no one chooses his or her country of birth, so it's foolish to be proud of it. Like, what if I'm in a like free society? Like, I can't be proud of. Oh, I'm happy. I'm living in a free society. Like, do I
Well,
have
it's
to
just
like
luck.
Right,
be
that's
like
again.
So
whipping
you also
myself
have
in
to
the
agree
back?
with the
Like,
luck
oh,
thing.
I'm not.
That's
Yeah,
a-
but you can still be happy that where you are, like,
Pride's a weird
embraces
word.
that.
That
It is a weird
I noticed
word.
that too. It's a broken question because pride doesn't
Like,
always mean
yeah.
I did something
Are you
great, so
gonna
I'm
s-
happy about it. Sometimes
Right.
it means this thing's great. Like I'm proud of my parents too.
Right.
But I didn't
Are
do
you gonna
anything.
say I'm nationalistic? Or like
Right.
military action that defies international law is sometimes justified? Like, that's stupid. What if
Yeah,
the
I
law
agree.
says like your country can't attack no matter like what if it's like against Japan? You know? Well, screw you, Japan. Like, you can't maintain an army. So like, it's just stupid. Like, well, if I say that yeah, it's sometimes justified, where am I gonna get skewed? Because it's not fully defined.
Yeah.
So, Jack,
Ton
just
of that.
to kind of clarify, that 1.75 -4, where is that like on the spectrum?
I would assume it was 1.75 was to the economic right, and that negative, my case 4 would be social libertarian.
Okay. So you're
think
Because
like
I'm
that's
not,
you,
That's the bottom right.
authoritarian. That can't be right.
Yeah, it puts you in the in the purple, and I think like more towards. You said you were 4 or something.
-4 for social libertarian.
Yeah, so you're probably like.
I think Spekr had the same axes.
It works like a graph.
Yeah,
so
it's
like,
a graph.
you know, over
Yeah.
here's positive and negative y. If you're in the purple.
Yeah,
Yeah.
probably
We can
visualize
burn
where you are. You're probably like up in the sort of in the.
I feel like
corner there,
everybody's
I
gonna
guess.
be right.
Nick, what did you get for your results on?
I was
Just a wild guess.
5.63 and -6.36.
Wait, 5.63.
Yeah.
Damn.
He's like I'm a super
That's to the right, bro.
Down there.
Super right.
And what was that?
He's right there with Ted
I
Nugent.
got worse.
6.36. So you're both more right and more libertarian than Jack and
Way
I.
more right.
See, we are moderate. I told you.
See,
Are we?
Not like those wackos.
Yeah, I got pretty far on the right.
I feel like one of the questions on these, like some of the questions, like
Oh, I can tell with
was
the
one of them
haircut.
about abortion and how was it
Yeah.
worded? Because I felt like the way that it was worded. I mean, I don't necessarily support abortion in my own life, but I wouldn't force anybody. But it almost gave you like
Yeah, you
it
have
almost
to
assumes
say-
that you now assume that the state should enforce it. You know,
Yeah.
like which I don't. You know?
false dichotomy.
Right.
Again.
You know, so I think that's why I ended up more like I guess right libertarian. I don't know though.
I beat you on that. I got 8.25 on the right.
Wow.
And like I said, I think,
Yeah,
it's,
it's
I
really
think
right
some of it.
Negative 8.25?
Libertarians
No,
are fighting.
8.25 on the
Who can be the
x-axis,
most
and then
right?
negative 4.26 for
Okay.
libertarian or authoritarian. I think that's because
You're like
That's not-
Pinochet.
that's not where I am. I think yeah, rev up those
I
helicopters.
could see. Yeah, I could see.
That was
I think
economic,
it's-
right?
Big hat.
Yeah, I think it's just because, like I said, some of those questions, you know, like, oh, well, are you justified if you defy international law? Like, well, yeah, but that doesn't, you know, like, I'm not picturing, like, us invading other countries. Like, it's just, I don't know. Maybe I was picturing, like, the extreme, you know.
Well, it's just a stupid question. That's all.
Yeah,
It's
it's
like a badly
just
worded
poorly
question.
worded.
so,
Any question that makes you involve like several scenarios in your mind of what it could possibly mean is a bad question.
Well, some of them were just bad. Like the astrology accurately explains many things. Like you
Yeah.
can,
That'll
you
probably
get
put you social left
Right,
if I
left,
had
up.
Yeah, it's
judging by
probably
people
left.
I know who believe in
Yeah,
astrology.
that's what I would say.
I'd say like hippie, who just like bring you to the hippie side right away.
or Hillary supporter. My mom freaking sends me horoscope stuff all the time.
See,
I
this
told her
is,
it's
this is
stupid.
the problem. We're all like, we hate it, but then every example we have is like, oh, but it's right though. Every time.
John, what'd you get?
Yeah,
for
I
the
don't
results?
completely discount it, but
I get if my stupid thing, 3.5 to the right, and then negative 2.36 to
I'm
libertarian.
surprised that's
Oh, we found our commie.
Yeah, it's his state. No, it's down.
Yeah.
I'm kind of surprised you got that.
That's what I said it was going to say for me, just statist.
Although, actually, that was the most left one, right? Yes.
Yeah,
I'm the
sorry.
commie.
I just kind of like noted where I was. What the hell did I get?
When
I
you
never
find out
knew.
I'm the statist.
Can we all work together?
So who was the most down? Nick was the most libertarian.
Oh, yeah, we tied.
That makes sense.
That's right.
No, the first number is like left and right. It's capitalist socialist.
Go and force sharing.
Oh, okay. Good. And then Nick is the most libertarian one, apparently.
Good job.
Congrats.
You're winning.
I knew it.
So I give this 3 stars. I didn't like that there was no neutral option. I did like that they had a land ownership question, but many of the questions are bizarre and have no relation to politics whatsoever. They might have asked me what kind of breed of dog I liked. So I didn't really like the results either. I didn't think they were really accurate for me. I don't think I'm a moderate centrist libertarian. You know?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, that's where they're just putting you based on your graph, but it's more like radical, sort of middle of the road, because you're an agorist, right? So if you were to break it down into like what subgenre of libertarian you were, it's
I
probably
guess.
kind of,
That's why I did all these fucking things. I wanted a good picture.
Well, you shouldn't have skipped the dog breed question then. Seriously.
for Pyrenees.
Jack, how many stars would you give this?
Well, like I've been harping on, it's English, so it was a little different. So I give it 2.3 metric stars.
Nick, how about you?
Yeah, I go with probably 3 on this one too.
John?
I will give it a 2, and one of those is because it didn't crash while I was.
Did one of them crash?
No, but just
Okay.
they all get 1 star.
So
for
he
that.
gets a star for participating.
Exactly.
Ethan, how about you?
I'm gonna give it a 3.
All right.
Garbage test.
Okay. You guys want to go to the last one now? Spekr?
We've come this far.
This one is the most attractive one.
Yeah.
So actually, I have to give credit to Spekr because Spekr is the reason why we're even doing this lengthy show today. Because Ethan posted his results a few weeks ago,
See if someone can beat me.
and we started some conversation about it, and then that kind of led into we should do this. But it was funny because at the time I was really pissed off at the quiz. The results I'd gotten then was that I was a mutualist, and I was. But I was mad, like, kind of because the wording of it really seemed like it was made by an ANCAP, so that there weren't really good dichotomies, and that's why I thought we should do these other quizzes. So along those same,
You're getting there, but your argument still isn't an argument.
but I don't know, there were a lot of good questions in here too. So one of them, to prevent government pollution and misuse. I like this because it reversed it. It like did a spin on the whole pollution thing. To prevent government pollution and misuse of natural resources, public land should be privatized.
Oh, suck on that one,
So-
libtards.
Again, it's an ANCAP spin on it, but I mean, it's a fair point. I mean, doesn't government pollute too?
It's the biggest polluter
Sure.
there is, a single party.
And if you think about
Not to
war,
mention
too.
the subsidies they give to
That's
both
true,
the
yeah.
military-industrial complex and the agricultural-industrial complex, just to name 2.
Yeah.
Right, exactly. The military, they have like giant burn pits where they just burn everything because they can't give it over to the enemy.
Or what do they do
burn
with
everything?
uranium from nuclear reactors that they don't use anymore? They just put it in bullets and spray it all over Iraq.
Exactly.
Problem solved.
Exactly.
Or they lose.
Take that
them.
inside out,
Yeah.
babies.
Or they lose their nukes.
Yeah.
Or they just buried under a big hill in the desert.
Right, bury it or
Train
burn it.
cars, and then it collapses.
Hey, Sanders was all
Accident.
about that.
Yeah.
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 But I did also think that this is a false dichotomy, especially if you look at it from the libertarian, socialist, mutualist, Georgist perspective. You know, if you're saying that public land has to be owned by government, it doesn't necessarily. You could either say that nobody owns it, that
Community.
communities own it,
Yeah.
people can use it, whatever. So,
But isn't that like the Leviathan that is the state?
No.
I don't think so. I think government requires force. I think it's a centralized body that administers force if you break its dictates.
But
Yeah, that's how you keep the rainbow families off your national parks, right?
Yeah,
You
exactly.
Kick them out with the BLM, right?
Weren't we just talking about how ownership of land is by definition force?
Yeah, it has to be.
Like, so how do you have, like, what that would mean not ownership of land has to be, is force as well.
What? For public?
Yeah.
You could have private owners just make theirs public.
What?
Okay, but
For land?
what stops
If you
me
say,
from
like-
saying it's not public anymore? I'm going to live there.
Yeah, you're really the owner.
Like if you had private land that you open to the
No,
public.
you
then
have private
said-
land.
Yeah.
You say, I'm going to make this open to the public. I say, sweet, and I start building my house on it.
Well, it'd be within. Yeah, you would probably have some kind of, like, I don't know.
Force.
Gang.
Well, no.
It has to
get
be
the fuck
met
outta
with
here.
force.
Well, yeah, it's still my land. I just opened it up.
But then it's not public land.
Well, it's not public for homesteading. It's public for travel. So you could
But
set
yeah,
like
but this definition of
parameters.
public is not owned by private.
Yeah, not owned at all would be complete lack of ownership.
Which has,
Which how would
it's
you
like,
enforce
I don't
that?
even
It'd be
think
impossible because
Yeah.
you'd have to therefore enforce it so someone owns it.
That, right. Exactly.
Even if it's a corporate body of like the government or
Right.
our committee or our company or whatever you want to call it.
The only way you have unowned land in our world, in the United States, is if no one can get to the place you're talking about.
Terra nullis, yeah. There's only one spot in the world that's not Antarctica,
Yeah, or
and that
it's-
was by treaty. So
Yeah, or it's owned but not used and not paid attention to. You know, I mean,
Right, so it's effectively
But that's-
public, but
right,
in
yeah.
reality, it's not public.
right. I mean, if it's
well, yeah, de jure and de facto.
that's
are
kind
gonna
of
be two
how
different
like
things
real
they are
estate.
now.
That's sort of how like real estate law works and stuff like that. Even like on small claims.
But what if you
know,
claimed
around here-
squatters' rights on that?
Right, exactly, and like my brother-in-law, there was a portion of his yard that was kind of
Yeah.
a fence that kind of was on the
Right,
other,
yeah.
from
So
the
he
other
was on
guy's
the other
property.
side. He was taking care of it.
So he moved it or whatever because he had grass there or whatever, so he
Yeah.
could mow the grass and whatever and make it easier on himself. The guy came over and like said, "No, it's here. This is where the line is. You know,
Yeah.
you know, it doesn't matter if the grass is over here. You know, and if he doesn't enforce that,
Adverse possession.
you know, for like 10 years or something like that, and it's that way." My brother-in-law can go to the town government and say, "Hey, you know, this has been like this for 10 years. You know, it's I'm going to claim it as mine.
It's mine now.
You know, it's mine, and that's how it works. So I think I think that's how it can work. I mean, if you, I mean, who has the right to own something? You know, really, we're taught it when we're little. You know, that who had it first. You know, you know that's how people gain ownership of something. And if you're still using it, if you're not using it anymore, you're not using it, then guess what? Somebody else picked it up and is using it now. I think if you're willing to use force to stop somebody from taking something from you, but I think like if you leave something unattended for a long time, you know, it becomes somebody else's if they claim it. You know,
Finders keepers.
yeah.
Doesn't that also kind of mandate you to be hyper vigilant though?
Yeah.
Well,
what if that
it
guy's-
should be because
what
if it's yours, you should have the ability to take it back when you want it. Otherwise, it's not yours.
Right.
That's the way I look at it.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. Yeah, and be in the right.
You
to
don't
do
use it, you
got to
lose
be in
it.
the right. So I mean,
But see, that's the
again,
thing.
Again,
like-
that's where it comes down to the whole arbitration. If this guy's been living there for 10 years and he's and you know he homesteaded the place and the guy never came and never told him, didn't even know that he was living there for 10 years. If you go to an arbitration company and they side for are they really going to side for the guy that owns?
They might.
You know,
they
100
might.
million?
Maybe
They
the
might.
fix is in. You know?
And maybe the
They
guy's
might.
got a lot of money because
Yeah,
he owns
maybe the
thousands
fix
of
is in. He's
acres.
a man of influence.
Yeah.
It happens.
Yeah, but at the same time, you know, if arbitration service was actually held accountable for their they had to make their money through.
But once power becomes entrenched, how do you remove it? Like, oh, you're a bad arbitration company. You're crooked. We're not gonna.
Well, you just don't deal with that arbitration company anymore.
But they have the security force.
They've got to come out with but there would be tons of competing security forces. You know.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just every time I mean, part of the whole conversation. I don't know.
Pinkertons,
Whenever I take
fucking
any of these
Pinkertons.
tests, I'm always like a little bit libertarian. It's like I've always called myself a libertarian-leaning conservative because whenever I have these conversations with people, I'm like, okay, maybe that would work, but it's not going to happen. Like, what am I going to do today? Like, and I think like it's, you know, it's just so.
Yeah, but
Like we're talking like 10,000 years of recorded history. Where
Right,
like,
exactly.
That didn't happen.
and yet we're not arguing that it should happen tomorrow. I mean, really, I think it couldn't happen. It's not possible for it to happen tomorrow. You know, it's just not physically possible. There's too much structure and culture in the way. You know, but at the same time, like arguing for those things, at least you know, for me, the reason why I get into conversations like this and stuff like that is I feel like I'm.
Well, it's
moving,
even to put it in your mind. Yeah,
I'm moving the needle. I feel like when I talk to somebody who maybe doesn't have the same opinion or doesn't think about it too much, I'm trying to move.
Well, yeah,
with
the shit I wouldn't even
to.
consider 10, 12 years ago, like in my mind, is even like
and it's
remotely possible or like feasible or never even thought about it.
That's what's so different from like.
It's like the taxation is theft argument. Like, you know, it doesn't matter if you're not going to get rid of taxes. And, you know, if society, like if I somehow knew, let's say I had one like epiphany, like, oh, taxation's never going to end for the rest of humanity. Like, I'd still argue that it's theft. It doesn't
because
matter.
it is.
Yeah, it doesn't matter if that's going to change or not. It's like the principle that you're arguing on.
Right. And if you stay principled in that argument, you never have to be in the wrong. You know, you never have to defend it. You know,
Right.
You never have to like if you
do, it's because you're like, well, this makes sense, and the other thing doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, I just when like that whole argument of taxation being like it is and it's very at its very
price
core,
you pay for living in a civilized society.
At its very core, it's immoral. So you can always I can always argue against it, and I never have to argue for it. You know, I just I never have to put myself on that side. You know, I just know that it's and I can always argue that side for me because I just never.
What about the argument that because you are choosing to live in a society that has
you're not.
taxes, that's what they say, you can leave at any
That's
time.
a stupid argument. It doesn't make any sense.
Okay, but why can't you just leave?
And go where? To where? Where is there not taxation?
I think that's overlooked, but the point is...
You can go places with less taxation than Connecticut.
Can you where?
Anywhere else in the United States.
You don't need to move
Liechtenstein?
resources.
You could
though.
go hide out in the woods in Saskatchewan or something.
You could move to South Carolina.
You don't
and
think
get
there's
less
taxes in Canada, bro?
No, I'm saying that you can try to evade the
Sure.
government.
Yeah, so then they come and kill you like Ruby Ridge?
Right. Yeah, I mean,
Fuck that.
the reason I haven't left is just family and that
Sure.
culture
I mean,
living here.
it ignores
Damn
a lot.
wife.
It ignores a lot to make that argument. Like you can't just like uproot yourself because you got your familial ties.
Well, it's kind of
And
bullshit
your
too, because
economic
it's assuming
ties.
that you're agreeing to something because you were born into it.
Right, like
You
you're
know?
agreeing to slavery because you were born in a
And you can make the...
Come on, see that's insane. Like that's insane because you're literally comparing like, hey, you're black, so I'm gonna rape you
No,
and you're gonna have
it's
my
the
kid,
base-
and he's gonna serve me for
No,
the rest of his life until I choose to kill him.
the base-
to you have to pay 24% of your income, and like that's
Yeah,
not
no, it
a
doesn't matter.
it's
The
not.
base
No,
thing is that the base thing is that you're there
No.
to deal with it. It doesn't matter.
I got a dog in this fight.
if you're a black guy who's getting killed, you're like, this doesn't feel the same.
No. Try to deviate from the cart tracks a little bit, and you will find the electric bumpers that say, "Yep, no further." But no further. Oh, you want to ingest the substance? Yep, no further than that. Oh, you want to have plants that aren't grass in your yard? Yep, no, can't do that. Why? Fundamentally, I'm disagreeing with the aesthetic that makes society possible.
Yeah,
That's ridiculous.
Yeah, no, the
It's absurd.
vast majority of the time, when it comes to actual policy that we're going to do today, I'll agree with most of what libertarians want to do. Because for me, the state's gotten so crazy that, well, yeah, I agree. Let's tamp it down. It needs to go down. It needs to be limited. But the idea that it's like, I go home, I wake up when I feel like it. I can get coffee,
But you
donuts
say that,
anytime
but,
I want.
that
I can
doesn't
drive
matter.
where I want. I can go from here.
If you wanna
I can
drive,
anywhere
if you
within
wanna
like
get
10,000
coffee.
miles I want. Compared
Yeah,
to I
because
leave my plantation and the entire society
You're not leaving
kills
the
me.
cart. You're not leaving the tracks. You're allowed to run the maze as long as you run the maze. If you fucking go to the wrong corner, then you're
Yeah,
gonna
You can't
taste.
deviate.
I think it ends up being more than 20-some% too. I mean, in the
Yeah,
I
well,
mean,
it depends on your
you're paying
income
tax on
bracket.
Well, and
top
it's
of it.
externalized taxes
yeah,
from
taxing the guy-
corporations.
they're
It's
taxing-
externalized taxes
Right.
from the property management.
They're
fucking
taxing the guy
companies.
that
Yeah,
made
no,
the
of
product
course,
that you're buying.
of
They're
course.
taxing on top of
Right.
the price that you're paying for it.
Sure.
They tax the
Well, actually, the sales property, they only pay when you.
And you
sell
can
it.
only use the funny money that they
It's
issue.
not even just taxes.
It's fundamentally
Exactly. It's not just
they got you in
taxes.
the way they want you to behave.
I'm a
If
low
you
taxes
deviate
kinda
from
guy.
that behavior,
Yeah, but
you are
I'm
now
not
an
one for
outlaw.
taxes.
The point I'm
It is-
making-
it is actually illegal to fucking deviate.
The point I'm making, John, is that it's not just like, well, the whole argument is that just because you're born there doesn't justify it. So just because I'm born with these kind of constrictions doesn't mean like, oh, I should just,
I wasn't born an American. I was born a fucking human being.
So,
Right. If somebody logs in, if somebody hacks into your bank account and only takes 25% of your thing, but then they go and give it to a charity, was that okay?
yeah,
No,
so
but
it
I will
doesn't-
be less mad than if they take my son and make him a slave for his whole
Yeah,
life.
but it doesn't. It's still an injustice.
Yeah,
It's still-
again,
No, but
I
you
didn't
still
say.
are,
I
you
said
still
it
are a
wasn't.
slave, though.
I said it wasn't the same, and it's not.
But
the
it
same.
is. It's exactly the
doesn't-
same. Because if you deviate, say, "Oh, master said I was supposed to be picking cotton. I was fishing instead." Fucking, they're gonna get you. The squad comes down, man. Why don't you go
not
in this
the same.
cage, motherfucker?
It's not
Go
the
in this
same.
fucking cage. It's on the man in the
Okay,
robe.
I'll go in the cage. My son will
Punishes
be
you
free.
appropriately.
I'll go in the cage. My son and wife will be free.
Will he? Because
Yeah,
they're
but-
still in the system. They're still. If they deviate, they too will.
Yeah,
Look
but
at
there's
Ruby
always
Ridge.
a
The fucking
system.
pregnant wife got shot in the back holding her fucking
There's-
child.
But
It
there's
shouldn't
always
be a
a system.
comparison of lesser
No
evil,
matter
John.
what, there's always a system.
Why
even
can't it be a
without
system? I agree with.
even without a system, there is it just depends who you are. Even without a government, even before we had governments, there's still societal systems, cultural things that
Yeah, but
exist.
it's-
And if you go outside those
but it's
lines,
affinity
you die.
groups. But it's
that just
affinity
happens.
groups.
But it would be more organic.
If I was
it
an
wasn't
Israelite in the
done by
fucking
force.
tribes and I said this law is bullshit, I'm going to join the Canaanites, I'll just fucking go. There's no banishment anymore. Where could you be banished to? There's no wilderness. What do they say in the Bible? The wilderness. What the fuck is the wilderness? You find me some wilderness. It doesn't exist anymore. It's fundamentally
agree with
different.
I mean, that doesn't matter.
It isn't though. It's not. That's not true. If they want to find you, they'll find you with a fucking helicopter. They'll fucking find you with a satellite.
Yeah,
They will
if you
find
go into the Canadian wilderness and you don't want to be found, like it's pretty freaking.
I've been in the Canadian wilderness. There's fucking roads up there. There's Tim Hortons. It's.
That's
find
not
you.
the Canadian wilderness. The
Yes,
Canadian,
it is.
The
Fort
Canadian
McMurray
wilderness
is the
goes for
middle
like
of
thousands
nowhere.
of miles. And that's not even the point.
not
My,
true.
my point is that I think, and like I said, I want low taxes. I want much less taxes. I want the federal government to be much limited, to do much less than it does right now. But I don't think that's the same as literal slavery, as in the slavery that has historically happened in the United States.
What percentage would it have to be for it to turn into slavery?
I don't know.
Is it 100%? Is it only 100%?
No, I don't know. I don't know the answer to that question.
How about 95?
But and plus, I don't think the only thing that constitutes slavery is the amount of the percentage of your income that they take. So that's not the only defining characteristic of American slavery. Like a lot of the characteristics is like you can't go anywhere.
Which is
And
the
that's
same
kind of
way
the
it is now.
Right.
You go on a plane, you don't have a photo ID.
No. You go on someone else's plane.
You can keep half of your
Without a
pay.
photo ID.
You can keep half of your pay. I'll just
No,
I'll
it
just
has
take the
nothing
other
to
half.
do with the airline companies.
Slavery
it has to do with
is-
the TSA.
In the strictest sense of the term, any system in which principles of property law are applied to people.
Okay. In the strictest sense, I don't use it in the strictest
Social
sense.
Yeah, but
Security
that
number.
wasn't even
Boom.
why you
Property
objected.
number.
I said
Inventory.
the whole reason this tangent got started is because I said
When drafts
it
coming
doesn't
up, the
matter.
numbers, et cetera, et cetera.
It doesn't
That goes
matter.
to
There you
die.
go. How's that? Is that slavery?
You go to fucking die. And
that
if you don't
slavery?
like it, then you put you in jail. We put you in the
I
cage.
didn't hear what you said. What did you say?
Draft. The draft.
Yeah, no, I'm not super pro draft.
But it happens.
The whole reason this tangent started, though,
okay.
John, is because I said, just saying that, well, if you don't like it, leave, isn't a valid argument because there are constrictions on what lets us leave, just like in slavery. If you don't like being a slave, you can just leave. You can just run away, and that's not true.
Can't do
So
it.
I'm not saying there's like
You can't leave statism or you can't leave the United States.
You can't leave. If you went to a border crossing and you didn't have a photo ID, you couldn't leave.
You couldn't get to a border crossing without doing like life comes with restrictions like freedom. So here,
Slave.
let me explain what my view of this is. My view is I do believe in government. That I believe some form of government is not only necessary but is inevitable. We can do what we can to make that government as small as possible, but it is the nature of human beings to form governments, and that is what is going to happen. Now
So that's 1% of history is governments.
Well,
1% is kings, 1% is temples, 1% is.
yeah, but you say that
priests.
like as if that's not all of recorded history. Like,
But you're
everything
saying recorded history
No,
is the
no.
only important
You're
history, and
assuming
I'm
that-
saying it's 1% of the entire.
You're
history
assuming
of
before
humans.
recorded history we didn't have governments, and you have no reason to assume that.
Why would writing have started? Why would recording have started? It is to keep temple inventories. It is to keep treasury inventories. It is an accounting system based on civilization. So to say that only recorded history is civilized in the sense that you're talking about is a circular argument.
No, I said the opposite. I said that you have no reason to assume that before recorded history there wasn't governments. If anything, we have reason to assume that because we do know of tribes that do not record their history. Vikings couldn't read. They had
Yes,
governments.
they could. They're runes.
No, there are many Viking tribes who would not record writing. They wouldn't record their events the way
The
we record
poetic
events.
Edda,
No,
the
all that-
prose Edda.
all the
I'm not talking about Viking. That's Iron Age shit. I'm
Right,
talking
yeah.
about.
Yeah, but I'm saying that
the Viking
civilization.
sagas-
without-
With
the
it.
Viking sagas were written down
Right.
later in the medieval period, but they were
Exactly.
oral tales. The Futhark
Right.
runes and everything, that was purely for divination and spiritual worship. Like those runes are a magical alphabet. It wasn't like
You can't-
they
you don't
wrote
read
out.
it.
They didn't write Beowulf in runes. Like
Right.
Beowulf was an orator, was a story that was written down
Yeah,
later.
in Latin.
Yeah, but the runes,
Or Anglo-Saxon.
the runes are that's like that was like that's a
Right.
whole other thing. That those actually hold like the letters themselves are symbols
Right.
for like what's behind it. It's
Right. Well, so we know
it's a
civilization.
magic language of
So,
symbols.
John,
We know it can exist. Well, I just want to finish exactly. So we know civilization can exist without writing. If you want to take an evolutionary standpoint on it, we know that hierarchy exists in primates, and you could say that easily translates into government. So I think this is an inevitable part of
It
human
depends on the
society.
primates you look at.
If it's
Chimps
not-
are the violent ones, bonobos like to screw.
Oh, yeah, but almost all primates have a hierarchy of some nature.
Yeah, I'm not
but-
saying a hierarchy wouldn't exist.
No, but what I'm saying is I think government is a natural form for human beings. I think it's naturally that we go
fundamentally
to.
murder's
disagree.
natural.
I think it had
I-
one source that came on Mount Hermon
Yeah.
when
So-
fucking Book of Enoch.
That being said, I think since that is, at least at this point, a natural thing that we will sway to, in your own arguments, there's nowhere you can go to get away from it. It exists everywhere because we all do it.
Eventually,
so I
over
think-
But it's
thousands
still-
of years, it finally
and regardless,
the cancer.
it's where
like
we are.
when you start with a tumor and then you get cancer in your lymph nodes and then it spreads to your entire body.
Right, but to say I have cancer everywhere, gee,
Yeah,
I
but-
wish I didn't, isn't a help.
But John, so what justifies?
But that's
Well,
not,
you gotta
that's
cure
not
the cancer.
But that's
You
not
gotta cure the
that's
cancer.
not the end of my position. My position is that since government is an inevitable thing for human beings, the best thing we can do is to create the government that allows people to have the most freedom for the most sustained amount of time. And there's a lot of argument about what that is and how far that goes and how far it shouldn't go. But I think that, for me, is the ideal, is to make the realistic ideal. The ideal that we can make happen is to have the government that will create the most freedom for the most people for the most amount of time.
For freedom to do what?
Yeah.
Well, that's the debate: is what do we value as freedom the most? Like, and that's you're gonna have the debate forever, which is good. Like, you're good. It's good to have the debate forever.
Yeah, and that's I think by shooting for zero government.
At this point, I think that's fine.
like,
I would agree
that's-
with you on like everything right now. I'd be like, yeah, let's do that.
Yeah,
Let's do that.
Because if we can shoot for zero, then maybe we'll come
But it's
in
not
under
the
a night
it's not
watchman statement,
romanticizing the burgers. You know, that's the thing I always have the problem with. Like, you talk to the real ANCAP folks, and they're always about like, oh well, you know, the Hanseatic League and Hamburg in the 15th century. Hans Hermann Hoppe, I think he's from like northeast or northwestern Germany or whatever. But I don't really consider that to be the accurate portrayal, you know.
Yeah, I don't
and
know
that's
if
the fundamental difference too. A lot of times it's like technology based sort of free market abundance and stuff, but I just don't see it that way. Really don't see it that way.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it could go either way, and I'm fine with it. You know, whatever it does. I would like the government to get out of the way and let the chips fall where they may, and maybe we'll go
Right.
back towards a more primitive society if there wasn't government.
Well, because whatever is
subsidization
optimum
of
will
certain
be
things. Right,
optimal.
exactly.
That's
Right,
the way emergent
And it-
systems work.
and
you
it'll
know?
make
that's
and it'll make
the beauty
for
of the whole
the
thing.
best system and the easiest way for mankind to
But what if
to
that's
struggle
already-
against nature. You know?
What if that's already happened and reality has determined that those governments are the most efficient way? What if that's what
It
if that's what
hasn't,
already
though.
happened?
It hasn't.
But what if that's part of the pre-merge system? Is that
Right. Well, I try to look at it. I try to
It
look at
could
it.
be,
like,
but I don't. I
It's just
I
a-
disagree that
logic,
it is.
whatever
I think
happens
there's
is
a
the best.
fundamental set of principles that were imposed upon primitive people.
but
I think it's just
By
power
what?
play.
I really couldn't tell you. Fallen angels, aliens. I really don't know.
yeah, I think that's a huge supposition.
I try
Why?
to-
Because the history of civilization say that's what happened. So why wouldn't you take them at their word?
I think government. I don't think it should be seen just as a system, but more as also an action that people are taking. Like I said before, people are naturally inclined to act on aggression or, be it through theft or murder or whatever. And this is just another form. This is coercion. So so it's some guy's way. However, it may have started for any civilization, at its core was some guy or like some clan headsman saying, you know what, let's all band together and we're gonna start this, and then gradually, either.
But the whole argument is that cooperation is a free exchange, non-coercive
Well, I'm
interaction is preferable and better in any measurement to coercion to
Right.
force. So why would coercion become the emergent system if it's not actually preferable?
I'm not saying
You have to either say like, well, the state is inevitable, as some people do, or say that the a coercive idea itself was a sort of infectious aberration.
I don't think it is preferable. I think it's just that for the people
that point of view.
in on the coercion, they were like, nah, I like this, and they figured that they could control the other people.
Then it must be better. Because
Well, no,
like
it's
what
only
John
for those
said, like
people.
what if that is the emergent system? Well, but therefore, if the meme of civilization is able to control the globe more efficiently than emergent anarchic principles would be, then that's the situation we find ourselves in. I mean, you can't argue with that because that's the situation we find ourselves in. Like, so you either have to say like, no, it was a weird thing that happened once and just is unnatural and strange, or you have to say like, well, yeah, that's the way. If you let the chips fall, that's what happens.
I would say that's, as of right now, I would say that's the way it happens, but I wouldn't say it's just. It's just like I said, people act
But that's just a
aggressive.
different definition of justice,
Yeah.
different than the one that currently exists and is dominant and therefore best.
Well, no, it goes against the non-aggression. It goes against the idea.
But the NAP is a loser's ideology,
Right.
You know, like
Why is that? Why
Yeah,
is
but
it
the Baltics started as pagans, they ended up
It's
as Christians.
objective,
Christianity won.
nothing?
It doesn't matter. It's It's that's the.
It's not objective though. I
Yeah, it
disagree
is.
with
The
that
nap?
fundamentally. Yeah.
Why?
Because if someone's fucking with you and you don't like them and you mess with them, that's the way it goes. If you're a mama grizzly's walking around, you mess with her cubs or get too close to them, she's gonna get you. I think she's justified in doing that. She doesn't know what your intent is.
That you're talking about.
It's the law of the
person
jungle,
interacting with
essentially. You know.
I don't even really. I don't think the non-object even the non-aggressive principle isn't even like it's not all encompassing. Like how do you deal
it's
with
fuzzy, it
how
depends.
do you how do you
Fuzzy.
deal with like parental neglect?
Yeah, or like sex slavery. You know, it's
Like
weird stuff.
Well, like parental neglect's not it's not aggression. It's the opposite. It's like as opposite of aggression as you could
Well,
be.
you're still violating their rights
Uh,
because they're dependent on you. You put them in that situation, and now you're gonna deny them.
But can you say
Certain
that
sustenance.
about
But they're their own
government
person.
taking away welfare from people if you're dependent on government welfare systems?
yeah, they
Well, I
put you
would
in
view
that position.
welfare as the other. I would just view welfare as theft. I mean, you're taking from other people. You're forcing charity. You know,
But aren't you violating the rights of the people who are dependent on that?
Right, you made them dependent.
yeah, but it's
You
a
put them in
faulty
that
system
position.
to start with, though. So I would say, I know you just left, but I would say that it is kind of like this. Like I said, my take on it as of right now, where I'm at, is that people are naturally inclined to coercion and other whatever. Like that's why crime happens. It's not like someone's just like, oh, I'm gonna be the one guy that starts like being a criminal. Like it's just natural. People act on their impulses, and I think that is one that people might not realize is that coercion is just one of those. It just involves other people banding together, and oppressing the other people, whether it's through their inaction. You can pop it. I don't care.
That was amazing.
So I would say it's just a natural.
Rob has risen to the
I would
top
say
of
it's
the ape
natural.
hierarchy. We will now bring him all
Do you
the
remember that time?
bananas.
No, never mind. I'm gonna tell a story.
Wait till the end of the show.
I sort
what's-
of look at it as sort of like an evolutionary thing. I mean, I think we're getting to the point where is violence really necessary? Can we reason this out? Can we work it out without violence? And just completely having one entity be the only legitimate party for violence.
You mean-
aggressive violence?
Yeah, you mean can we work this out with dispersed violence? Because you
No, just
Yeah, it would have to be as decentralized as possible, but
defensive
yeah.
force only. Defensive
Personal
force only.
defense.
Violence is actually aggressive.
It's a very
is a
libertarian
violation
definition
of
of a violence.
Right.
I understand.
right. Or
Well, it's
aggressive
that nuance
force.
that matters. So.
Yeah, no, I
So I mean, like I said, I think that it is. I think it's natural. I don't think it's justified. It's just like me going and stealing your stuff, or me going and, killing someone. It might be.
well, what's your stuff?
Right.
Well,
I
I'm
mean,
just-
at some point in history, slavery was legitimate, and it was legitimized by the state, So eventually we outgrew that, So eventually, can we someday outgrow coercive taxation? That is a wrong. It's a wrong perpetrated on several people. If they wanted to give that money, they would have given it voluntarily. So why the force? So it is involuntary.
I think potentially yes, we could, and I agree that would be the ideal. I just don't think we're anywhere near there right now.
Well, yeah, I view it like birth, right? Birth is a crisis. Birth is a traumatic event. The baby could die. The mother could die. Both of them could die. It's serious stuff,
I did it like 4 days ago. Well, I didn't do
Well,
it.
you know what I'm
be fair,
talking
I
about.
didn't do it.
You
I
know,
was
Nick's
there.
a father of 3. He knows what I'm talking about. Like, Rob's has 2 kids. Like,
Yeah.
it's a serious thing. Like, people's lives are on the line.
Yeah.
So,
It's intense.
maybe
Am I the only person on this panel who isn't married? You're all married, aren't you?
got old
Well, producer.
Stevie.
But everybody, you talking, folk. All right. Go ahead. Sorry.
But yeah, so like, if that's
I was gonna make a slavery joke.
like I said, to facilitate, let's say, abundance for everyone, not whether you're a property owner or not, because if everyone's a property owner and everyone's concentrating on abundance, then things become so abundant that they have no value. There's no price on air. There's no price on, for now, let's say, because it's becoming more scarce by the minute. But, some stuff like, Adam Smith had a big problem with that. He's like, water is more valuable to people, but diamonds are more valuable monetarily to people, but they have no real intrinsic use or whatever. Why is that the case? And it's because such stuff is non-scarce. Yeah, it's vital to people, it's important to people, but it's so available that people don't even think about, do I own it or don't I own it? So if we can get things like that, and using the knowledge that we've accrued through the let's say cult of materialism that is modern secular society that we all exist in and participate in and would die without. I'm with you guys on that one. Then it can lead us to the knowledge we have gained through that understanding. Materialist understanding could lead us to a more integrative understanding, which is like the end of the process. Like it leads to a new life, a new whatever you want to call it, and that's, I guess, fundamentally why you have to be like revolutionary.
So
If we don't just kill ourselves first.
Right, yeah, and that's the way birth works. It's a gamble. It might go really bad.
And that's all. Like all that. That's all like supposing that like the nature of the universe is like, no, you can't live that way. Like someone has to die, someone has to fight. That's the way it's always been. Sorry. Like,
All right.
you know what I mean? And I hope that is not the reality.
Right.
all right, guys.
I don't know.
I'm gonna bring us back to the Spekr quiz because we're
Well, that's what this was about. This is about.
it's about quizzes.
Almost.
Getting real deep on these political quizzes.
So there was 2 questions that I didn't like the influence. One thing about Spekr we should mention is that as you're taking the quiz, every answer you can see how it's moving you on the political spectrum, which is a critique that I actually had about it because it seems like you could try to put yourself in a given spot. But there were a couple that I didn't like the way that it moved you. So one was environmental advocates and social pressure groups are more effective means of changing public behavior than government action. And if you agree to that, it moves you to the right. But it seems like a libertarian socialist or an anarcho-communist would probably agree with that too. So it shouldn't really move you left or right. Another one is subsidies for energy production should be abolished. If you're at that, that moves you to the right. So some of those questions, I just think they were badly worded. I think that they thought that left equals government.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that kind of helps though. Like I understand that it kind of sucks seeing exactly where your answers are going to put you for each question. But I think it helps because you kind of get the context of what the author of that quiz is going for. So like if like these other
he
questions,
was up front. He even says like the author's name is like Anarchy, like
right? But like
AEI or something.
he still has his own subjective ideas of what the answers are exactly going to place you at. So like the other ill-defined questions we went over, this kind of lets you see like, all right, I'm going to say this, and then you see that, well, he's deciding that puts you there, so maybe he's like, maybe you guys are thinking on opposite ends of the same question, and do you know what I mean? Like
you can. It allows you to more easily see what his intention was.
Yeah, so there were like 2 or 3 that I saw that it moved me like one way, and I was like, that doesn't make
that's not
sense.
what I
I so I changed it, but it was only like a few. But I changed it because I was like,
Yeah, see,
I was
that's
like, I
only
think
because
he
you know
means
where
this
you
one.
are, though. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but that's why that's kind of
But it's
something
his
you need to
interpretation. It's like, no, your interpretation of my answer is wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of something where like your political ideology, you kind of need to figure out on your own, because otherwise, anyone's context could skew you, and then you end up as a moderate libertarian or
Well,
a
so
centrist.
let's get to the results, because actually this one said that I was a Georgist, and when I took it,
Hey, there you go.
when I took it a few weeks ago, it said I was a mutualist. So I'm somewhere between mutualist and Georgist.
Which one
apparently.
is further?
Giorgio Mutualist.
Which one's further down?
Georgist is like it's pretty much ANCAP, I guess, except for you think land shouldn't be owned.
Yeah.
But then like, I was gonna bring this in later, but I was talking on Facebook groups, trying to talk about certain aspects of these quizzes, and one of them I was asking like, what's the difference between a mutualist and a Georgist, because I wasn't too sure.
Did they call you a land cuck?
I did get that at one point, actually.
Yeah.
That was an ANCAP group that called me that.
Yeah, I've asked George's questions just to try and figure it out, and they just call me a land cuck.
Okay,
I'm
so
like,
I
"Can
asked.
get an answer.
I asked the geo-libertarianism Facebook group, how are geolibs different from mutualists? One said the standard for the just occupancy of land. I said, could you please elaborate? He said, mutualist, occupancy and use, geolib, sharing of economic rent. Does this make sense to anybody?
No.
Another one to this lengthy thing. Georgists might look at 2 identical houses with identical loans and mortgages, their owners buying or inheriting a quarter-acre lots, and both able to stay financially in the black, but one is in Boston near the train.
This goes on for some time.
Read the first one
It
again.
does.
I think that one actually did make sense. The first guy.
The standard for the just occupancy of land. He said mutualists.
I can see that.
Mutualists equal occupancy and use. Geolibs, sharing of economic rent. So, anywho, I'm somewhere between those two, even
you
though
know
I
what
don't
your
understand what the fuck
coordinates
that shit means.
You rated as confused.
What were your coordinates?
It's just a big question mark.
But they give you numbers here too. So economic for me was 72, and cultural was negative 100. 100. Jack, what did you get for your results?
Let's see. I was a libertarian capitalist. Big surprise there.
Really?
Yep.
Wait, I was left of you?
Hey, I'm not surprised judging by the political compass thing.
Okay. What are your numbers?
All right. I'm not the commie anymore. Economic was 81. Cultural was negative 82.
Libertarian capitalist is a huge range in this test.
Was it?
Yeah, that's what I got too, and I was 42 and negative 35.
That is a big range. You must have been like right on the border, and I was on like the opposite border.
42 and what?
Negative 35.
All right.
So far, I'm winning.
Nick, how about you?
Winning.
I printed this one out and I forgot to bring it.
Damn it.
I didn't take
Do you remember
this
what you
one
got?
on my phone.
You remember what
it was either libertarian capitalist or anarcho capitalist, but I don't know if it used that term. or not.
I'll give you anarcho-capitalist.
All right.
Someone's gonna take the test and be like, "This category doesn't exist."
I never heard of this genre of political beliefs.
Ethan, how about you?
So I got ANCAP, 98, negative 93.
98, negative 93.
He's
So
just trying
almost-
to pad his score.
Yeah, really.
What?
He's just trying to pad his score. It's looking like down right.
No.
So the big plot
happy.
twist about this whole thing is that this Spekr thing, I hated at first, and I wanted to do this to evaluate different quizzes against it. But actually, at the end of it, I think this might have been the best. I actually think I liked this one more than the others.
So look at my profile.
And it was in their hearts all along.
Check it out.
I know it was biased,
what it
but and the layout actually sucked. I did this on PC. Did any of you guys do this on PC?
Yeah.
And you had to keep scrolling down. Did you have to keep scrolling?
No, I found a sweet spot.
Yeah, me too.
Really?
I found a sweet spot too.
There's something about my
It's like
monitor.
one click up or down.
I did it
Well,
on my phone.
That's a shame. You had to scroll down every
I
time.
did.
I hate this quiz.
I like this
72
one the
questions.
most.
I don't know if I like that you can see the results as you're doing them.
I didn't like that
It
either.
was skewing my results.
I didn't
Was
focus
it-
too much on that.
I think you can't help but know. You can't know if it's excusing.
Yeah.
What is going on?
My profile picture is like this Mr. Bill like outline and grease on a patio door at the
Yeah,
Michelson's
who did
house. Shane walked right into it and cut his lip. He hit his teeth on his upper lip.
He left a facial
Like a
print.
fucking blue jay. It was like a perfect face print. It has a little mouth. You can
Look
see
at
his lips where he like smashed his face against the window. This is my profile picture now.
So Jack, how would you rate this Spekr quiz?
I'll give it 3 out of 5, I guess, just because it was slanted towards the anarchist community, so there was a lot of questions that were in my wheelhouse, but at the same time, it was because it was slanted to my wheelhouse. So
So I side with was your favorite. Seems like.
yeah, I would say that was the most thorough, for sure. This
Nick,
one had some more fundamental questions.
Nick, how would you rate this quiz?
I would give this one 4 out of 5. I think. I think it's sort of like activism. The guy who puts this out,
Yep.
tries to frame the questions at least to get people thinking about them from a separate, different angle. So.
Well, it's like the world's shortest political quiz, which is like clearly
Well, that's owned by
libertarian.
the
one.
Libertarian Party,
Yeah.
I think.
But they're trying to do the same thing, like make you really think about fundamentally the philosophy behind your answers to shit.
Yeah.
John, how about you? How would you rate this quiz?
I'd say a 3 just because of the slant. I mean, there was questions. One of them asked about like, do you think it's necessary for us to like? They literally said to be the policeman of the world, and it's like no one who believes that is going to say it that way. So it's like no one answers that question. Yes, like people, So
I think there are.
I know
some
some
people
people
who say
that would.
most people, I'm some people, but the vast majority of people
Justice and
wouldn't
democracy.
say that. They'd say like we need to be involved, but I wouldn't say we need to be the policeman.
We need lesbians to vote in Iran.
Exactly. So
Ethan?
3. Yeah.
How about you?
I'd say like 4.3 stars. Draw a third. Draw around a third of a star.
Well, it's,
I'll figure something out.
0.3. Put the repeating. sign.
it's slightly less than a third. It literally infinitely less.
So I think my favorite was Spekr, although I side with was a close second. Jack, would you say the reverse?
Yeah, I'd say I side with pulls it out just because of the really detailed questions and their like results. There was all sorts of categories of results. Really thorough.
Nick, what was your favorite?
Yeah, I would say. I've taken all of them before. I side with this kind of cool because it had cool features, and then I liked Spekr as well too. I thought I thought the design was cool. That one. I don't know. So I would say Spekr.
John, what was your favorite?
I don't know what my numbers say.
I side with.
Yeah, it says it says I side with. You gave 4 stars.
As I'm going with that. Oh yeah, it for me it gives the most like for the average person who doesn't think about the philosophical implications of things and is just thinking about what our government is going to do tomorrow, I think for those people, which is most people, I think it's the most valuable of all four.
And Ethan?
So I liked Spekr first, and then I'd side with next.
The ANCAP's like the ANCAP political quiz. Surprise, surprise.
Well, did you guys agree with your results? I didn't agree with mine. I thought all the moderate, libertarian, centrist shit was off. Well,
Yeah.
maybe centrist.
I got it because
moderate wasn't.
I pull left on some shit, you know.
Okay,
So it's like a
okay.
Chops-
left,
a
left to
Chomsky-
right, yes, but I got like in the middle on the like social shit on the.
Because a lot of the stuff I like don't care about or I'm neutral about, like kill babies, don't kill babies, whatever, man.
I think the only one that was truly accurate was Spekr for me. I'm gonna try and break I side with though. I'm gonna try and get a new classification in there.
It can't be done.
I side with Murray Rothbard.
Hey, that'd be sweet.
It's a good side to be on.
Yeah.
What happens if you just don't answer any question and you just
Neutral. How
quiz.
important was it? Not very.
Sheep.
I know we're running over, but all of us, I guess, are generally libertarian capitalist-ish. I mean, overall.
Nuances of my position don't get represented in these kind of things.
So I posted, like I said, I was posting on a couple different forums, and I posted on a libertarian socialist one to ask them what libertarian capitalists got wrong. So I'd like to read a couple of these and see what you folks think about what they have.
This will be fun.
All right, so I asked,
I love
why
Facebook fighting.
is ANCAP/libertarian philosophy misguided? What are they missing or ignoring? So one answer was, their basic unit of analysis is the atomic individual, and I think most of their difficulties emanates from this.
Okay, you can see that.
They want a governing state replaced with governing corporations and want wages and the value of one's worth determined by today's, quote, smooth diet capitalism replaced with bold capitalism extra. ANCAP isn't about total freedom. It's only about freedom from the state, which is only somewhere between 1/4 and 1/3 of what oppresses and restricts freedom in most industrialized nations.
What else does it?
That guy really likes Adbusters.
Not
That got
not
16 likes. That guy, his comment got 16 likes.
not legitimately. You know, I mean, the state's
lines-
the only one that does it that
Who lines
oppresses
people up
and
in a
it's
trench and
it's
fucking shoots them in a mass grave and covers them with lines? It's not Monsanto.
Yeah.
Because capitalism can't be transformed, changed, or reformed in any way that would make it unexploitive of the working
And
class.
socialism can't
Okay.
be.
Yeah, they're worse. So
Getting rid of government so the magic of the free market can guide humanity into complete and utter destruction. They can't see
polar
the
bear hugger.
I mean, you can't really argue with that. It's just like
Polar bear hugger. It's an add-on.
They can't see the irony in wanting to get rid of a government but wanting to be ruled by faceless corporations.
They're freaking libertarian
see.
socialists. They want government, but say they don't. Like,
Want government where everyone can agree to the government. Do you ever see Sparkle Hands at Occupy? That basically sums it up.
You are free to do what we tell you.
Jazz
Sparkle fingers.
Who's that? Bill Hicks?
Process.
One guy said to me, ever seen the show Dark Matter? That's the future they want. Have you guys seen that show?
yes.
No.
Okay. Do you understand what that comment means?
Yeah, so in Dark Matter, it's a sci-fi. I love sci-fi. Hate everything they always do, but it's awesome anyway. It's basically instead of large nations, you have large corporations. Is essentially, and because they're
So there's like private security and shit like that?
so it's like instead of having it's sci-fi like space sci-fi. So instead of having planets, there's large corporations that own many planets, and there are governments, but they're weak. And so it's essentially, but that's a stupid thing because it's kind of insane to think that would happen. With the corporations have to get money from somewhere, but I don't think that's dumb. If anything, it would just collapse. You wouldn't get that big, and then it'd be bad.
But huge corporations already run everything. They're the bankers.
Right. Yeah, that's the thing.
So they finance all these governments. They're fucking bitches.
It seems like libertarian socialists, they are seeing capitalism and government like partnering together into like this
What exactly?
supervillain.
What is a
Well, they
libertarian
are.
socialist
socialism
even? What
is
does
the
that
same.
mean?
It means you don't want government, but you want people to communally own things. You want like
Yeah.
workers cooperatives to own
Syndicalists.
everything.
Everyone needs to be poor.
But so
That doesn't.
but they don't
How do you
believe
scale
that,
that?
you
Like,
should.
that
They don't
is-
believe that should be decided through.
No, it's
property
affinity
rights,
groups.
right?
I asked previously on one of these about why don't you work with ANCAPs to get rid of the state and then see like what economic system naturally progresses? It's like no, because capitalism would overtake the workers, and
'Cause
you need to
they're
crush
scared.
that first.
So it must be better.
One guy on here just went off about how libertarianism was originally a left wing. Like the original libertarianism was libertarian socialism. at
That's
least
true.
That term.
That's true.
But if you go back to the English Civil War, there were actually two different groups. There was the levelers and the diggers.
Yeah.
And okay. One guy said because Rapture sucked, even with all the cool plasmids. I said what? He says I know. Fucking Andrew Ryan. I guess this is a Bioshock reference.
Yeah.
Had to look that one up.
They all complain about basic economics, but that's all they are. That's all they are. Basic economics, not advanced.
Oh, the macro micro argument.
guess so.
Economics is such bullshit. Well, you could talk on that, Steve.
So as long as
You
they
ever take
don't
a macro
define that
class?
argument, they're winning.
Yeah, but with the statist, corporatist, that's not what.
Did it make any
everything for.
sense? Or
It's all about how a graph moves. I mean,
so no.
Yeah. Although you can't. You can only derive so much from
Models
from macro.
are the
economics.
reality.
Right.
Okay, the models are the reality.
they think property equals liberty rather than property equals theft.
Give that one a round of applause.
So the idea is that you have property because you stole it from someone.
Because you did. That's fine.
Someone did.
Yeah, somewhere down the line.
Some of these are just too long. I'm not going to read
way
them.
back when though.
Yeah, like what is
Nothing
that?
I did had anything to do with
That
that.
doesn't
Great grandfather clause.
Yeah.
To be a capitalist,
Check
it-
your
So stupid.
abrogation society or arbiters.
To be a capitalist is to exploit those without any capital. So the very basis of capitalism is to be immoral and lack empathy.
How do you exploit people
That's not true
who
though.
don't have capital when
That's-
your goal is to get capital? You wouldn't.
Because
exploit
Yeah,
them
because
they
you
don't
give
have
them the
capital.
choice, labor or die, and then they work for you, and you get more from their labor than they get from their labor. That's the way employment works.
I mean, sort of. Like
That's exactly how it works.
That's
right?
putting
if
the
you're
whole
making
system
$10
on,
an hour
on
off a
one
guy's
employee.
labor and you pay him $8, then you're making $2.
Yeah, but you're
And you're just facilitating the labor to occur.
yeah
right, but you're
maybe.
also providing the capital
But you're-
that he has so that he can
Where did you
perform
get that
work.
from?
You're also putting that whole
By saving
system
it.
on one employee, like employer, as
capital
if
was
your
real,
employer is like,
perhaps.
if you don't do this, you're gonna die. It's like that's not.
But that's the way it goes.
That,
Well,
the way she
the
goes.
next one says the problem is that they believe that employers are right to determine the value of their employees' time and labor. They think that employers do right by their employees despite blatant evidence to the contrary. I feel that there might be some sort of lack of positive self-image if they think that they're not worth a living wage.
See, the end part gets a little
Who
sappy,
defines
but,
what a living wage is?
Yeah,
But the first
but
part,
the
I think, was
empl-
pretty spot on.
Well, the employer doesn't decide that though, because like the person taking the job decides it, whether they're going to want to do the job or not.
What's supposed
you
to
know?
be that they
because if the
agree on it,
choice
right?
is like that or
Right,
not
they
eat.
agree on it.
Well, in
so
the
whatever
market, too.
they agree on it. So that price, whatever they agreed on, whatever they agreed is their employment contract is the price that it would be. You know, that's if you're willing to give up your time for that amount of money, then that's what it's worth.
And it's also the economic side too. I mean, if it depends on what you're selling as well for how much you can pay someone.
right,
And,
sure.
like,
It doesn't
the
happen.
skill
It doesn't
involved.
happen in a vacuum.
Yeah,
It's influenced by the markets.
it's just.
But it's a weird thing to base your value on the amount of money that you make anyway. Like it's an unhealthy way to
Yeah.
determine human value. And it's a super, super, super immoral way to determine human value in the long run.
Yeah, it
Can't
just
serve
shows
both God
that.
and Mammon.
Yeah, but it's not really human value that they're judging. It's
Sure
labor.
it is.
It's labor value though.
But
no, they're
what
judging.
they said is that when
But
they were talking about
which
self-image.
is that person's hour.
Yeah, but
That's their life.
yeah, but if it's their life, but they're willing to give it up for $6 an hour, so
Right.
that
Because
so
of
they
that
don't.
or have no life because you don't eat.
Well, then what's it worth to you? I mean, is it worth going to work or what? Whatever. I mean, it is what it is. It's the survival against nature. At some point, somebody's got to work. Somebody's got to do the work. Somebody needs to cook the burgers. Somebody's got to do that. So, is it for them to sell the burgers that at whatever price they got to sell them?
You're equating the survival against nature with cooking burgers.
Yeah,
like,
that's
think
because
about the amount of steps between those two.
well,
I'll tell you what, cooking burgers
question the premises,
cooking burgers is a whole lot easier than survival against nature.
Right,
in the
exactly. And
winter
we're at the point now where the person who's cooking burgers didn't survive
400 years ago.
400 years ago.
You dip your basket. That's a European mindset. If you dip your basket in the Connecticut River, you get all the salmon you need for the winter, and you're good. Fucking take it in 2 hours.
Statistics just don't bear that out. Like, you don't. That's not.
What statistics?
That's not real life. Like,
that is. That's what happens.
What happens if you don't live on the Connecticut River?
Mortality rates have gone down in modern history. Yeah. Like, we die so much less than we used to.
No, but that's the averages because people die at 0 when they die in childbirth.
Whatever. I'm good with that. Less babies dying is great.
But that pulls the average way down. And actually, during the rise of civilization, people were less healthy and died earlier than they did their hunter-gatherer counterparts.
Right, but so
they were taller, more healthy. I mean, Eskimos don't get cavities. Eskimos don't get heart disease. Eskimos don't get cancer, and they eat nothing but blubber. So,
yeah, but there's a lot. Actually, just recently,
diet.
a lot. Diet is very varied based on your geography and your genetic traits based on geography. So the reason they've adapted to live in that environment is why they can eat that. So it changes a lot, and I'm fine with that. If I agree, the statistics are skewed because infant mortality is way lower than it used to be. But that's awesome. I'm okay. I'm good with that. Like, less infant mortality is great. Like, if that's the way it changed, if that's the only change, if we didn't live any longer, which I deny, I don't think that's true. But if that was the case, I'd still be okay with that because.
Well, going back to
why is the statistics the primary end? Why is like increasing the number the best part?
I think, again, the least freedom or the most freedom for the most amount of people for the longest amount of time. I think that's
I'm totally with you on that.
And I think the way to do that is the technology that gives us, innovation and food.
Well, going back to the whole minimum wage thing, I think
people had food, otherwise we wouldn't be here.
Yeah, but not to the degree that we have now.
It's stupid for them to frame it in that kind of argument, like, oh, you need to provide these people with a living wage, because it just completely neglects like the harm that a minimum wage causes.
Well, it completely leaves out a lot of the the Fed completely ruining the money, and that right there has that severe decrease in the value of money has caused income inequality.
Right, fucking Ron Paul did it best with his silver dime. He's like, I can buy you a gallon of gas for a dime right now. Silver dimes are $3.
Right.
There you go.
Right. Yep.
Yeah.
So I mean, if you take that into consideration, I mean, would things have worked out? We'd be able to get things for cheaper if they hadn't, so we would be moving. Standard of living would have increased tenfold had we not been held back by.
Yeah, there's a couple of factors
but it kind of depends on you define standard too.
Right.
And
well, I mean,
but you can fundamentally say at least the free market operates to give wages as high as they can possibly be and drive profits down as low as they can possibly be, because you're always trying to undercut the other guy in a place where you have absolutely no protection. Yep. So what is that end result? To me, that end result is sort of the worker having the control of the means of production, right?
All of that
He's earning as much the percentage of his labor as he possibly can while still facilitating being a laborer. And at the same time, the bosses, the capitalists, whoever you want to say, the owners of the capital, make as little as they possibly can while still maintaining that capital.
Yeah.
So that is the workers owning the means of production.
Yeah.
It ultimately, you drive the bourgeois down to the middle, and you drive the proletariat up to the middle, and they meet right at the middle. On one side, one little side step left, you have the workers, and the other side, you have the owners. And pretty soon, the workers become the shop owners, and so on and so forth. Everyone's an entrepreneur, and now everybody's the owner of the means of the production. Everybody's the capitalist of one, of a firm of one. That's the ultimate goal of capitalism unfettered, which is also the goal of fucking socialism unfettered, you know? It just doesn't work out that way because you have the chink of like, well, we're going to point a gun at your head and make you do shit.
I don't think the goal of capitalism is to have an end result like that. I think it's just to provide a service.
Yeah, at the lowest cost possible while still maintaining some profit, right?
I don't agree with that supposition, and I think it's one that a lot of economists make who've never worked in a service industry. Like, for instance, I won't name my company because people get mad if they know we did this. Our goal is...
I'd hire you again.
Our goal is to make the most profit that we can make in a given year.
Most companies.
Right.
But if it was totally competitive.
every company, our... well, obviously, like, we're a small business. We get no subsidies. If anything...
Well, you have licenses, right?
No. It's an unlicensed industry. I mean, we have a
surprising.
We have a well, we have like a
Wild West out there.
We have like a contractor's license, but like that's like a form.
There you go.
But it's a form you fill out. Like you can't lose it. It's like impossible.
But you did it. Right? So if Jose, who doesn't speak English, can't get a contract.
No, Jose would have a contract. Like everyone in the whole world can get a contract. You could get one probably tonight. They're super easy to get.
Note to self: get contractors.
No, they're amazingly easy. They're like $50. It's crazy. You can get it if you can afford a bus ticket to Hartford. You can get one. But it's
all right.
But anyway, our goal is to maximize profit in the year. So in our industry, that means not being the cheapest, because the cheapest is some guy who just schmuck does it. Yeah. So we've had multiple times where I've had people who have literally told me, "Listen, you're over twice the cost of the other people. We're gonna go with you." So it's not. I mean, so economists look at it that way, but that's not always the truth.
But that's the other factor is the good service
that has the professional acumen to get the crew. I mean, you're not hiring Jose for $5 an hour under the table. You're hiring guys.
Yeah, but it's not always that extreme. Sometimes it's smaller link. But the point is that I'm trying to make the most profit in a year, and sometimes that means being lower. Sometimes it doesn't. And also, a lot of times when economists talk about this, they take all the fact that most of these businesses that people talk about are these small businesses, which are human beings. So, like, I don't own the company. The owner, he pays guys more than he has to. Like, he could hire some 19...
That's what I'm saying.
He could hire some 19-year-old and pay him nothing, but he chooses not to do that because he's a human being.
Whenever I hear
he's a human being, and he knows when
people griping like about
right.
pay and stuff, because I work for this company.
Yeah,
I'm like, hey, it could be worse. You know, it could have. We don't have to.
Well, right. He also pays more for
get more professional crew.
For professional labor crew.
Sure.
So that he can charge double what the other.
But that comes out of his margins. You know, that's the balance.
Yeah, exactly. And he's all got to work that.
The less the less restrictions there are, and the more potential competition there could be, the tighter that difference is going to get until it almost goes to nothing.
Right. Well, and also that capitalist guy. So he's got to maximize profit. He's got to make the most that he can. But that betters his balance books for the next year when it's not that good, so that he can keep that guy on that does him right. So that it's not always him making the most money that he can now is not always just to benefit himself. It's an organization. He's got guys that depend on him for the job too.
He's investing personally and financially into his firm.
Right. It's him, but it's also the guys that work under him. And that's the thing is, like, guys, guys that do right by their employees will have a more professional crew and be able to charge more. That's the way it should be.
As that occurs, you get brought up the management ladder, you become more personally invested in the company too. It's not just him, it's not just your boss, it's you too. Yeah. And I totally understand, but I think as restrictions to entry to businesses as they operate now become less restrictive, that's going to get closer and closer, where people who want to work at a place, really believe in what they're doing, they really want to be part of it. I mean, a lot of guys, like when I worked at an engineering firm, those guys, they were at the company in day one. They started from UT. They're personally invested in that. they analyze data on their weekends. They analyze data on vacation. They're not getting paid for that time, but they believe in what they're doing, which is fine, whatever. But I mean, they're almost at the point where they do it pro bono. If you just let them mess around in the lab, you know, like.
I think you're right that like individual, you know, working for yourself is definitely on the unquestionably on the rise in the United States. There's no part of that is inevitability, and part of that is technology too.
Well, I think also too,
which might be part of the same.
Go ahead. Sorry, I think also too that you can have that mindset. Even if you are working for somebody else, that they're your one customer. You know, like if you have that mindset, then I think it's easy to understand. You know, you're taking that money from him because that's you're giving up your time. That's how you're investing yourself into that to get that money back. You know?
For sure, you know, and like. But if you don't want to play that game, then there's not a lot of room for you. You know, and I think if the restrictions were lowered, if you wanted to just be like a total off the wall and like do something, the same thing, but in a totally different way, there's just not a lot of latitude for that.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, 2 hours and 45 minutes. Gone over these 4 quizzes. I appreciate your time tonight. Any final thoughts from anybody? Anybody have any last thing they want to get off their chest? No, I think we covered.
State is violence.
I think that we covered every base there is to cover. So,
I think we should take a few minutes to talk about like abortion and like gay rights. And, like,
there you go.
And, like,
some of these hot button.
Let's talk about the
issues.
map and how I think it's objective.
Maybe gender or tackle that.
Well, you know, it's going to be a pretty, I think, unanimous panel. Believe it or not.
We'll save that for another time. But thanks everybody for joining me. I do appreciate it. Appreciate you taking these quizzes. And Spekr and I side with, and not 8 Values and not Political Compass. So Rob, I hope you enjoyed your birthday show.
That's great.
Will everybody join me?
Great.
I think we should all sing Rob a happy birthday.
All right.
English or Spanish?
Yeah.
Give a pitch pipe.
We could do it in Norwegian.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Rob.